The champagne flute shattered against marble with a sound like bones breaking. Amara Wells watched the liquid spread across the floor of the VIP suite, golden, expensive and wrong. Something about the way it caught the light, the faint opalescent sheen that shouldn't exist in Dom Pérignon, made her nurse's instincts scream danger. She'd been working at the Meridian for exactly 4 weeks. Long enough to learn the rhythms of Chicago's most exclusive private club. Long enough to memorize which members tipped well and which ones let their hands wander. Long enough to perfect the art of being functionally invisible while wealthy men conducted business that would never appear in any legal document. But not long enough to forget what tetrodotoxin looked like when it contaminated liquid. The man who dropped the glass stood frozen at the center of the suite, his face a careful mask of control even as his fingers began to tremble. He was younger than she'd expected for someone who commanded this kind of space, maybe 35 with the kind of bone structure that belonged on magazine covers and the kind of stillness that belonged to predators. Kang Mi-ho. Even the other staff whispered his name with a particular quality of fear. The Korean businessman who owned half of Chicago's waterfront and all of its secrets. The man whose meetings ended with either handshakes or disappearances, never anything in between. And he was dying. Amara saw it in the way his pupils dilated too rapidly. The subtle weakness entering his stance. The nearly imperceptible loosening of his jaw as neurotoxins began their work, shutting down voluntary muscle control one system at a time. She had maybe 90 seconds before respiratory paralysis set in. The other men in the suite, 5 of them all in expensive suits, all wearing expressions of polite concern that didn't reach their eyes, continued their conversation as if nothing had happened. As if their boss wasn't standing in the middle of them, poisoned and dying while they discussed quarterly projections. One of them, silver-haired and smiling, caught her staring. "Clean that up," he said in Korean, gesturing to the spilled champagne. Amara's hands moved before her brain caught up. She crossed the suite in 4 strides, her server's uniform suddenly feeling like a costume she'd outgrown mid-performance. The silver-haired man stepped into her path, but she sidestepped him with the kind of efficiency that came from years of navigating crowded emergency rooms. Kang Mi-ho's eyes tracked her approach. Dark, intelligent, and completely aware that something was catastrophically wrong even if he couldn't identify what. Amara stopped directly in front of him, close enough to see the fine tremor in his hands, the way his breathing had already begun to shallow. Close enough to smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that probably cost more than her monthly rent. And then she signed. Her hands moved in sharp, precise isl, each gesture carrying the weight of life and death. Poisoned. Tetrodotoxin. Pufferfish toxin. His eyes widened fractionally. Recognition not of the diagnosis but of the language itself. He could understand her. Amara's heart hammered against her ribs, but her hands remained steady. Champagne. Contaminated. Respiratory paralysis in 60 seconds. You need hospital now. Something shifted behind Kang Mi-ho's eyes. Not panic, something colder, more calculating. His gaze swept to the silver-haired man, then back to Amara, and she watched him do the math in real time. Internal betrayal. Professional hit. Someone close enough to poison his drink. His hands rose, movements slower than hers but just as precise. "Who are you?" "Nurse. I can help. But we move now." The silver-haired man's pleasant expression had cracked, replaced by something sharp and dangerous. He said something in Korean, rapid and commanding, but Kang Mi-ho's hand came up in a gesture that was universal. "Stop." When he signed again, his fingers were beginning to lose coordination, the toxins spreading through his nervous system with ruthless efficiency. "Trust you?" Amara held his gaze, making a split-second calculation that would either save his life or end hers. "Your choice. Die in 90 seconds or let me work." For one suspended moment, the entire suite held its breath. Then Kang Mi-ho's hand found her wrist, grip surprisingly strong despite the poison, and he nodded once. The room exploded into motion. The silver-haired man lunged forward, reaching inside his jacket. 2 other men moved to block the exit. But Kang Mi-ho was faster, even dying. His free hand struck out with brutal precision, catching silver hair in the throat, sending him stumbling backward, gasping. Amara's training kicked in with crystalline clarity. She dropped to her knees, pulling Kang Mi-ho down with her, positioning him on his side. Recovery position. Airway management. Her hands moved to his collar, loosening his tie, unbuttoning his shirt to ease breathing. "Someone call 911, she screamed at the frozen staff members clustered near the door. Nobody moved. Because of course they wouldn't. This wasn't a medical emergency. This was an execution, and she'd just thrown herself into the middle of it. Kang Mi-ho's hand found hers again, weakening now, and he signed something that looked like a name. Then his eyes rolled back and his breathing stopped. Amara's world narrowed to a single point of focus. Keep him alive. She tilted his head back, checked his airway, clear but unresponsive. No chest rise. No breath sounds. The tetrodotoxin had paralyzed his diaphragm. Rescue breathing. No. She sealed her mouth over his, breathing for him with controlled exhalations. 2 breaths. Check for pulse, still there, thready but present. 2 more breaths. Someone grabbed her shoulder, trying to pull her away. She shrugged them off with vicious efficiency, all her attention on the man dying beneath her hands. Breathe. Count. Breathe. Count. Her nursing instructor's voice echoed in her head. Tetrodotoxin poisoning is survivable if respiratory function is maintained. The toxin doesn't damage tissue, it just paralyzes. Keep them breathing and they can recover completely. So she breathed for him. The suite door crashed open. Not paramedics. Men in dark suits with weapons drawn, moving with military precision. One of them barked orders in Korean, and suddenly there was a gurney and ambu bag, organized chaos that felt like salvation. Strong hands pulled her back, not roughly but firmly. A man with a scarred face and eyes like winter took over rescue breathing with professional efficiency while another checked vitals, started in 4-line coordinated transport. Amara stumbled backward, her mouth tasting like expensive champagne and someone else's breath, her hands shaking with adrenaline crash. The silver-haired man was gone. The other suits had evaporated like smoke. Only Kong Miho's people remained, the security team that had materialized too late to prevent the poisoning but just in time to prevent the execution. One of them, a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and an expression like carved ice, approached Amara with measured steps. "You signed to him," the woman said in perfect English. "How did you know?" "Know what?" Amara's voice came out steady despite everything. "That he's deaf." The words landed like a diagnosis. Suddenly everything made sense. The way Kong Miho tracked movement with hypervigilance, the reason the poisoning had been carried out with such confidence, the isolation that must come from navigating a criminal empire while unable to hear threats approaching from behind. "I didn't," Amara admitted. I needed to communicate fast and signing is faster than writing and..." "What's your name?" The woman's gaze was surgical in its precision. "Amara. Amara Wells." "Miss Wells." The woman's hand extended, cold and formal. "My name is Park Sun-hee. I manage Mr. Kang's household operations. You just saved his life, which means you've created a significant complication for everyone involved." "Complication?" "The people who poisoned him are watching. They saw you intervene. They saw you communicate with him in a way none of them could." Park Sun-hee's expression didn't change, but something in her tone sharpened. "Which means you're now a liability they'll need to eliminate. And an asset Mr. Kong will want to protect." The weight of it settled over Amara like a shroud. She'd walked into the Meridian 4 weeks ago looking for temporary work while she saved money to restart her nursing career. She'd been invisible, safe, rebuilding her life one shift at a time after everything had fallen apart in Atlanta. Now she'd just signed herself into a war she didn't understand, with a man she didn't know, in a world that killed people who knew too much. Park Sun-hee's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back to Amara with something that might have been approval or calculation, hard to tell which. "Mr. Kong is stable. We're transporting him to a private medical facility." She paused, measuring her next words carefully. "You should come with us. For your own safety." "I can't just, I have a shift to finish and..." "Miss Wells." Park Sun-hee's tone carried the weight of absolute certainty. "The moment you put your mouth on his to breathe life back into his lungs, you became his responsibility. In our world, that's not a metaphor. That's a binding obligation." She gestured toward the door where 2 more security personnel waited, hands visible but postures suggesting weapons were close. "You can come willingly or you can try to walk out of this building and see how long you survive. Your choice. But choose quickly." Amara looked at the spilled champagne, still spreading across the marble like liquid gold stained with something lethal. She thought about the silver-haired man's smile, pleasant and murderous. She thought about Kong Miho's eyes, the moment he'd decided to trust her. She thought about the fact that she'd just performed mouth-to-mouth on one of Chicago's most dangerous men, and now everyone who wanted him dead would want her dead too. "I need to get my bag from the staff room," she said finally. Park Sun-hee nodded once. "Yujin will escort you. You have 3 minutes." The drive through Chicago's midnight streets felt like traveling through a city she no longer recognized. Amara sat in the back of a black SUV with windows tinted dark enough to be illegal, sandwiched between 2 silent guards who radiated the kind of competence that came from military training and regular violence. Park Sun-hee occupied the passenger seat, speaking rapid Korean into her phone, coordinating something that probably involved covering up an attempted assassination at one of the city's most exclusive clubs. Amara's hands still trembled slightly. She folded them in her lap, pressing thumb to palm to stop the shaking. 3 years of rebuilding, 3 years of careful invisibility, gone in the span of 90 seconds. Her phone buzzed. Text from her roommate Zara. "Where are you? Shift ended an hour ago. You okay?" Amara stared at the screen, unsure how to answer. "Something came up at work. Staying with a friend tonight. I'll explain tomorrow." The lie tasted bitter, but the truth was impossible. "Hey, I just saved a deaf Korean mafia boss from poisoning and now I'm being escorted to an undisclosed location by armed guards because apparently witnessing an assassination attempt makes me a liability." Yeah. That conversation could wait. The SUV pulled into an underground garage beneath a building that looked like it housed expensive law firms and financial consultants. The kind of legitimate businesses that served as beautiful camouflage for less legal operations. They rode an elevator in loaded silence. Amara counted floors. 1, 2, 3, stopping at 5. The doors opened onto a hallway that smelled like antiseptic and money, and she recognized the signs immediately. Private medical facility. The kind where celebrities got discreet plastic surgery and criminals got bullets removed without police reports. Park Sun-hee led her through a maze of corridors, each one whispering wealth and secrecy. Finally, they stopped outside a door marked only with a number. 503. "He's stable," Park Sun-hee said without preamble. The doctor administered activated charcoal, started supportive care. The tetrodotoxin will metabolize naturally over the next 24 to 48 hours, assuming no complications. "Can I see him?" The words escaped before Amara could stop them. Park Sun-hee's expression flickered with something, surprise maybe or reassessment. "Why?" "Because Amara paused, searching for the right words. "Because I need to see that he's actually okay. Because I just breathed for someone for 10 minutes straight and I need to know it mattered." For a long moment, Park Sun-hee studied her with the intensity of someone who'd spent decades reading people for survival. Then she nodded once and opened the door. The room beyond was exactly what Amara expected. Hospital functionality wrapped in boutique hotel aesthetics. Soft lighting, expensive linens, medical equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction film. And in the center of it all, Kang Mi-ho. He was awake. That shocked her more than anything else. Tetrodotoxin paralysis usually lasted hours, sometimes days. But he was sitting up slightly, still pale, still weak but conscious and aware. His eyes found hers immediately, and Amara felt the weight of that gaze like a physical thing. Park Sun-hee signed something to him, too fast for Amara to catch more than fragments. His response was slower, careful, the movements of someone whose muscles were still remembering how to obey nerve signals. Then he gestured to Amara. A clear invitation, approach. She moved to the bedside, hyper-aware of Park Sun-hee watching from the doorway, of the guard station just outside, of the beeping monitors that tracked Kang Mi-ho's return from the edge of death. His hand rose, signing with deliberate precision. "Thank you." Simple words. Monumental weight. Amara's hands responded automatically, muscle memory from years of working in pediatric oncology where half her patients had been deaf or hard of hearing. "You're welcome. How do you feel?" A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Like I was poisoned." Despite everything, the danger, the fear, the absolute insanity of the situation, Amara felt herself smile back. Accurate assessment. He studied her for a moment, his gaze cataloging details. The name tag still pinned to her uniform, the practical bun she tied her hair into, the way she stood with her weight balanced evenly, ready to move. "You're a nurse. Certified. Not currently practicing. Why not?" The question was direct, invasive, exactly the kind of thing she'd spent 3 years avoiding. But something about the moment, the intimacy of having breathed life into someone, of communicating in a language most people couldn't understand, made honesty feel less dangerous than lies. Complicated. Mistake in Atlanta. Lost my license temporarily. His expression shifted. Not judgment, recognition. The look of someone who understood that simple sentences could contain devastation. Atlanta's loss. Chicago's gain. Before Amara could respond, his hand moved again, gestures becoming more fluid as his nervous system continued recovering. "The man who poisoned me. Silver hair. His name is Choi Sung-min. My father's advisor. Trusted for 20 years. The words carried their own weight. 20 years of loyalty, ended with poison and champagne. "I'm sorry. Don't be." His fingers moved with cold precision. He made his choice. Now he faces consequences. Amara watched emotions flicker across his face. Anger, yes, but beneath it, something that looked like bone-deep exhaustion. The fatigue of someone who'd lived his entire life expecting betrayal and still feeling the sting when it arrived. You need rest, she signed. Your body's been through trauma. I need answers. His hand caught hers, stopping her retreat. Not grabbing, just touching, skin against skin, warm despite everything. Who taught you to sign? My little brother. Born deaf. I learned when I was 8. Something shifted in his expression. Softened maybe, or deepened, hard to tell which. Where is he now? Gone. Car accident 4 years ago. The pain was old now, worn smooth by time, but it still had edges. Still cut when she let herself remember Elijah's laugh, the way his hands moved when he got excited, the brightness in his eyes that had nothing to do with sound and everything to do with seeing the world more clearly than most hearing people ever would. Kong Miho's grip on her hand tightened fractionally. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. They stayed like that for a moment, two people bound by language most of the world couldn't speak, by losses that couldn't be translated into words, by the strange intimacy of having saved and been saved. Then Park Sun Hee cleared her throat from the doorway, signing as she spoke aloud. Sir, the doctor wants you to rest. And Miss Wells needs proper debriefing about security protocols. Kong Miho's jaw tightened, but he nodded. His hand released Amara's, but not before he signed one more thing. You're safe here. Under my protection. Sleep tonight without fear. It should have sounded presumptuous, this man she barely knew offering protection she hadn't asked for. But looking at his face, the sharp intelligence behind the exhaustion, the absolute certainty in his gestures, Amara realized he wasn't offering comfort. He was stating fact. She'd saved his life in a way no one else could have, communicating across barriers that had kept him isolated in rooms full of people. And in his world that meant something. That created obligation, connection, debt. She nodded once, then let Park Sun Hee guide her from the room. The apartment Park Sun Hee led her to was 3 floors above the medical facility, connected by private elevator. It was beautiful in the way weapons were beautiful. Every surface polished, every angle precise, nothing soft or forgiving about the space. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Chicago's skyline, the city glittering below like scattered diamonds. Minimalist furniture in blacks and grays. Art on the walls that probably cost more than Amara's entire education. This is a secure guest suite, Park Sun Hee explained, moving through the space with practiced efficiency. Biometric locks on all entrances. Panic button in the bedroom and bathroom. Armed security on rotation in the hallway. She opened the closet to reveal clothes, women's clothes in what looked like Amara's exact size. How did you? We work quickly when necessary. Park Sun Hee's expression remained neutral. There's food in the kitchen, toiletries in the bathroom. Everything you need for an extended stay. Extended stay? Amara's stomach clenched. How extended are we talking? Until we neutralize the threat against Mr. Kong. And by extension against you. Park Sun Hee moved to the window, gazing out at the city with the posture of someone who'd spent years watching for dangers in beautiful places. Choi Sung-min didn't act alone. Poisoning requires planning, opportunity, coordination. He had help, which means there's a conspiracy within Mr. Kang's organization. And you think I'm in danger because I saw? Because you saved him when you should have been silent. Park Sun Hee turned to face her fully. In our world, Miss Wells, silence is survival. You chose intervention. Noble perhaps. Certainly brave. Also incredibly dangerous. Amara sank onto the leather sofa, feeling the weight of the last few hours finally catching up. What happens now? Now you rest. Tomorrow, you meet with Mr. Kang's security team for proper debriefing. They'll need to know everything you saw, everyone who was in that suite, every detail you remember. Park Sun Hee paused. And you'll need to decide. Decide what? Whether you walk away from this with our protection and a very generous settlement for your trouble. Park Sun Hee's gaze sharpened. Or whether you stay. Stay and do what? That, Park Sun Hee said quietly, is something only Mr. Kong can explain. She moved toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. One more thing. Mr. Kong has been deaf since childhood. Meningitis at age 7. His father, who built the organization Mr. Kong now runs, saw it as weakness. Tried to hide it, compensate for it, eventually planned to bypass him for succession entirely. But he inherited anyway. He took what was his. Park Sun Hee's smile was sharp and cold. By proving that his supposed weakness was actually his greatest strength. When you can't hear threats, you learn to see them. When people underestimate you, you learn to use their assumptions as weapons. She opened the door, then looked back one final time. You communicated with him tonight in a way none of his own people can. You saw the poison when everyone else saw nothing. You saved him when trained security failed. Her expression was unreadable. That makes you either a remarkable coincidence or a very dangerous variable. We're going to figure out which. Then she was gone, leaving Amara alone in an apartment that felt like a beautiful prison. She stood at the windows looking out at Chicago's midnight sprawl. Somewhere out there, Zara was probably asleep in their shared apartment, unaware that her roommate had just crossed into a world most people only saw in movies. Somewhere Choi Sung-min was planning his next move, recalculating after tonight's failure. And somewhere below her, Kang Mi-ho was recovering from poisoning, saved by a nurse who shouldn't have been there, who shouldn't have known sign language, who shouldn't have intervened. Coincidence or design? Amara pressed her palm against the cold glass and wondered which would be worse. Dawn broke over Chicago like a wound, red and raw against steel towers. Amara woke disoriented, tangled in sheets that cost more than her monthly salary, in a bedroom she didn't remember falling asleep in. The events of last night crashed back with brutal clarity. The poisoned champagne, Kang Mi-ho's collapsing respiratory system, the silver-haired betrayer's smile, the way her entire carefully rebuilt life had shattered in 90 seconds. Her phone showed 6:47 a.m. and 17 missed calls from Zara. She called back before her courage failed. "Oh my God, where have you been?" Zara's voice cracked with relief and fury in equal measure. "I was about to call the police. You can't just text, staying with a friend, and disappear for 12 hours. I know. I'm sorry." Amara moved to the window watching the city wake below. Something happened at work. Something complicated. Complicated how? Amara, you're scaring me. How did you explain this? How did you tell your roommate, your best friend, the woman who'd helped you rebuild after Atlanta destroyed you, that you'd accidentally saved a mafia boss and now lived in protective custody in a luxury apartment guarded by armed men? "I witnessed something I shouldn't have," Amara said carefully. "And the people involved want to make sure I'm safe while they sort it out." "Witnessed what? Sort what out?" Zara's voice rose. "Are you in danger?" "No. I'm protected. Very protected." Amara pressed her forehead against the cool glass. "But I can't come home right now. It's not safe." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Zara, I need you to trust me. I'll explain everything when I can, but right now I just need you to know I'm okay. I'm somewhere safe with people who what? Who killed for a living. Who ran criminal empires. Who have resources." "Resources?" Zara's laugh was sharp. "That's what we're calling it. I'll text you every day. Twice a day. I promise I'm not in danger, I'm just in protective custody from something you witnessed at a private club where you served drinks." Zara's background was in investigative journalism before she'd switched to freelance writing. Her bullshit detector was finely tuned. "Amara, what kind of people are you dealing with? The kind who poison each other over succession disputes. The kind who have private medical facilities and security teams that materialize like smoke. The kind whose protection felt simultaneously like salvation and trap. The kind who keep their word," Amara said finally. "I helped someone and now they're helping me. That's all I can say." Another long silence. Then Zara sighed, resignation and worry wrapped together. "Hey, but you text me twice a day, and if I don't hear from you, I'm going to every police station in Chicago with your photo. Deal?" After they hung up, Amara stood at the window feeling the weight of what she'd just done. She'd lied to her best friend, accepted protection from a criminal, and walked willingly into a world she didn't understand. 3 years of careful invisibility gone. A knock at the door made her turn. Not Park Sun-hee's measured rhythm, something heavier, more masculine. She opened it to find a man in his 40s, compact and muscular, with a face that suggested he'd seen violence and delivered it in equal measure. His eyes were dark, assessing and completely without warmth. "Miss Wells. I'm Kim Jae-sung, head of Mr. Kang's personal security." His English carried a slight accent, precise and controlled. "We need to debrief you about last night." "Now. You've had 7 hours of sleep. That's sufficient. Not unkind, just factual. The longer we wait, the more time the conspirators have to cover their tracks." Amara grabbed the leather jacket she'd found in the closet, perfectly fitted of course, and followed him into the hallway. The building revealed itself in stages as they walked. What she thought was a single private medical facility was actually an entire floor of a high-rise that Kang Mi-ho apparently owned. Medical wing on 5, residential suites on 6, and now they were ascending to 7, where the elevator opened onto something that looked like a Fortune 500 war room. 3 walls of floor-to-ceiling screens displaying security feeds, financial data, news broadcasts in Korean and English. A conference table that could seat 20. And standing around it, a group of people who radiated the particular tension of a command structure in crisis. Park Sun-hee stood at the head of the table, speaking rapid Korean to a young woman with purple-streaked hair who typed with aggressive efficiency. Two men in expensive suits argued in low voices near the windows. And in the corner, arms crossed and expression carved from ice, was Kong Mi-ho. He was dressed now, dark slacks and a charcoal button-down that made him look less like a poisoning victim and more like what he was. A man who commanded dangerous things with quiet authority. His eyes found Amara the moment she entered. The intensity of that gaze made her breath catch. He signed something to Park Sun-hee, who nodded and switched to English. "Miss Wells, thank you for joining us. Please sit." She gestured to a chair positioned where everyone could see her. Interrogation seating, Amara recognized. Maximum visibility, controlled environment. She sat anyway because what choice did she have? Park Sun-hee pulled up security footage on the main screen. The Meridian's VIP suite from last night. Multiple angles. Timestamp showing 11:47 p.m. "Walk us through it," Park Sun-hee said. "Everything you saw, heard or noticed. Start from when you entered the suite." Amara's mouth was dry. She reached for the water bottle someone had placed in front of her, grateful for something to do with her hands. "I was called up around 11:30. They'd requested champagne service. Dom Pérignon, specific vintage. I brought it up on a tray with 6 glasses." The footage showed exactly that. Amara in her server's uniform, entering with practiced efficiency, beginning to pour. "Who was in the room?" Kim Jae-sung asked. 6 men total. Mr. Kong obviously. Then Choi Sung-min, I learned his name later. And 4 others I didn't recognize. She closed her eyes, pulling up the memory with the clarity that came from nursing training. 2 were Korean mid-50s expensive suits. One had a Rolex, the other wore reading glasses on a chain. The other 2 were younger, maybe 30s, different style, more American business casual. Park Sun-hee's fingers flew across a tablet. 4 photos appeared on the screen. These men. Amara studied them. Yes. Those 4. Park Jin-woo and Lee Sang-hoon, the older 2. Both senior advisors in Mr. Kang's organization, inherited from his father. Park Sun-hee's tone was clinically neutral. The younger 2 are Marcus Chin and David Kim. American-born, recruited 5 years ago for their legitimate business expertise. Which means all of them had access and opportunity. Kim Jae-sung's jaw tightened. Any of them could have contaminated the champagne. "Continue," Park Sun-hee prompted Amara. "What happened after you poured?" "I was backing toward the door. Standard protocol, stay until dismissed but don't intrude." That's when Mr. Kong reached for his glass. She watched her screen self hovering near the exit. He lifted it, started to drink, then stopped. Just froze. And I saw it. Saw what? The way the liquid caught the light. There was an iridescence, almost opalescent. Tetrodotoxin does that sometimes when it's suspended in alcohol. She leaned forward. "I did a rotation in toxicology in Atlanta. We had 2 TTX cases, both from improperly prepared fugu. The presentation looked exactly like what I saw in that glass." Kong Mi-ho's expression hadn't changed, but his fingers moved in rapid SL to Park Sun-hee. She nodded and translated. "Mr. Kong says you identified the poison in approximately 3 seconds. Faster than any of our people would have." "Training," Amara said simply. "And luck. If I hadn't done that rotation I wouldn't have recognized it." "Or," Kim Jae-sung said slowly, "you were placed there specifically to recognize it." The accusation landed like a physical blow. "Excuse me. You appear at the Meridian 4 weeks ago. No prior connection to the service industry, nursing degree from Emory, suddenly working as a cocktail server in one of Chicago's most exclusive clubs." His voice was flat, professional. "Then you happened to be in the right room at the right time to save Mr. Kang's life using knowledge most people don't have. That's either remarkable coincidence or excellent planning." Amara's hands curled into fists. "You think I'm part of the conspiracy? I think it's my job to consider every possibility." Kim Jae-sung leaned forward. "So let's examine your story. You lose your nursing license in Atlanta. Why?" The old wound tore open fresh. "That's not relevant. Everything is relevant when someone tries to murder my principal." His eyes were hard. "Answer the question." Park Sun-hee raised a hand. "Jae-sung, I've already vetted her background. The license suspension was temporary, related to a whistleblower situation that went badly. She reported a doctor for falsifying patient records. The doctor had connections. Miss Wells was retaliated against professionally." "Convenient story." "Documented story," Park Sun-hee corrected. "I have the medical board transcripts, the wrongful termination lawsuit, everything. Miss Wells is exactly what she appears to be. A nurse who made enemies by doing the right thing." Something in Amara's chest loosened fractionally. She'd expected interrogation, suspicion, But Park Sun-hee defending her credibility felt like unexpected alliance. Kang Mi-ho signed something sharp and definitive. Park Sun-hee translated. Mr. Kong says this is wasting time. The poison came from inside the organization, not from a server who's been here 4 weeks. Focus on identifying which of the 6 men in that room betrayed him. The purple-haired woman spoke up for the first time, her English accented but clear. I've been analyzing the security footage. Watch this. She pulled up a different angle, zoomed in on the champagne service. Frame by frame showing Amara pouring each glass from the same bottle. 6 glasses, 1 bottle, no contamination visible during service. Which means the poison was either in the champagne before Miss Wells brought it or, she advanced the footage. Here. The screen showed Choi Sung-min reaching across the table for a glass. His hand obscured the camera view for exactly 2 seconds. When it moved, he was holding a glass and his other hand was sliding into his jacket pocket. He palmed something, Kim Jae-sung said. Switched out a clean glass for a prepared one. Or added poison to a clean glass during that blind spot. Park Sun-hee's expression was grim. Either way, Choi Sung-min was the delivery mechanism. The question is whether he acted alone or had help. Where is he now? Amara asked. The silence that followed was answer enough. Park Sun-hee's expression remained professionally neutral. Mr. Choi Sung-min is no longer a concern. Amara's stomach turned over. She'd known abstractly what kind of world she'd entered. But knowing and confronting the reality, that a man had been killed in the hours since last night, probably brutally, probably by people in this room, were different things entirely. The other 5 men, Kim Jae-sung continued as if discussing a business transaction rather than murder, are being held in secure locations pending interrogation. We'll determine who else was involved. Interrogation. Amara's voice came out flat. You mean torture? Kang Mi-ho's hands moved, signing to Park Sun-hee. Mr. Kong says we prefer the term enhanced questioning, but yes, essentially. Park Sun-hee met Amara's gaze without flinching. These men tried to kill him. They conspired to destroy leadership, which means they endangered everyone who depends on this organization for protection and livelihood. There will be consequences. I can't. Amara stood abruptly, chair scraping against polished floor. I can't be part of this. I saved someone's life. That doesn't mean I sign off on torture and execution. You're not being asked to sign off on anything, Kim Jae-sung said. You're here because you're a witness. And because you're in danger. Then put me in actual witness protection. Real police, real legal system. The real legal system, Park Sun-hee said quietly, is how you lost your nursing license. How doctors with connections destroyed your career for telling the truth. You think that system will protect you better than we will? The words hit like surgical strikes, each one finding its mark. Kang Mi-ho moved then, crossing the room with surprising grace for someone who'd been paralyzed less than 12 hours ago. He stopped in front of Amara, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. His hands rose, signing with deliberate care. I understand your fear. Your moral conflict. You saved my life because you believe in healing, not killing. Yes. But understand this. His expression was intense, almost fierce. The men who poison me will not stop. They have resources, connections, patience. If I let you walk away, they will find you. And they will kill you to eliminate the witness. So what are you saying? I'm your prisoner? I'm saying you're under my protection whether you want it or not. His hands moved with controlled intensity. But I'm also offering you a choice. What choice? He turned to Park Sun-hee, signed something rapid. She nodded and left the room, returning moments later with a folder. Kang Mi-ho took it, opened it and showed Amara the contents. It was her nursing license. Not the suspended one from Atlanta. A new one. Illinois certified, active status, issued 2 hours ago. Her breath stopped. How? I have resources. His slight smile was almost gentle. Connections in the medical board. Your case was reviewed, your suspension overturned, your record cleared. As of this morning, you're a fully licensed nurse in the state of Illinois. Amara's hands trembled as she took the document. 3 years. 3 years of applications denied, of doors closed, of being told her career was over because she dared to tell the truth. Gone. Erased. Fixed with a few phone calls from a man who commanded that kind of power. Why? She signed, vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. Why would you do this? Because you saved my life. His hands were steady, certain. Because you're trained in toxicology, emergency medicine, and you communicate in a language most of my organization doesn't speak. Because I need someone I can trust in my medical team. And if I say no, then you keep the license. Keep the protection. Walk away with your life restored. He paused, letting the weight settle. But you'll always wonder if the next person who approaches you in a parking lot is someone from my world finishing what Choi Sung-min started. It was manipulation, elegant, effective, and not entirely wrong. Amara could feel the trap closing, but it was lined with things she desperately wanted. Safety, purpose, the career she'd thought was dead. And if I say yes, then you become part of this. His expression was serious, almost solemn. My personal physician. My medical advisor. He hesitated, searching for the right sign. My ears when I need them. Your ears? I've been deaf for 25 years. I've learned to navigate a hearing world through reading lips, body language, excellent peripheral vision. His hands moved with practiced precision. But there are situations where I need someone who can hear and sign simultaneously. Someone who can translate not just words but tone, inflection, threats I can't perceive. The intimacy of what he was asking settled over her. Not just medical care, access to his most fundamental vulnerability. Trust of a kind that went beyond professional. You don't know me, Amara signed. I could betray you. You could have let me die. His hand rose, fingers brushing her cheek in a gesture that sent electricity down her spine. You didn't. That tells me everything I need to know. Park Sun, he cleared her throat. There's one more thing Miss Wells should know before deciding. Kong Mi-ho's jaw tightened, but he nodded. The conspiracy to kill Mr. Kong isn't just internal, Park Sun, he said. We've intercepted communications suggesting FBI involvement. Someone in federal law enforcement has been coordinating with the conspirators, offering protection in exchange for Mr. Kang's removal. Amara's blood ran cold. The FBI is trying to kill him? A faction within the FBI, Kim Jae-sung corrected. Not official policy, personal vendetta disguised as law enforcement. Which means you can't trust police protection, federal witness programs, or any traditional legal channels. Who? Amara demanded. Who in the FBI? Park Sun, he pulled up a photo. Man in his 50s, silver-haired, distinguished, wearing a badge and confident smile. Special Agent Theodore Ross. Head of the Organized Crime Task Force. He's been building a RICO case against Mr. Kong for 3 years. Her expression was grim. Apparently he got tired of waiting for legal prosecution and decided to expedite matters through assassination. The room tilted. Amara gripped the table edge, fighting down nausea. She knew that name. Knew it from Atlanta, from the whispered warnings other nurses had given her when she'd filed her whistleblower report. Theodore Ross destroys people who get in his way. He buried a corruption case against a hospital administrator because they were fishing buddies. If he's involved in your situation, run. She'd thought they were exaggerating. She'd thought the system would protect her. She'd been wrong. Miss Wells. Park Sun-hee's voice seemed to come from very far away. Are you all right? I know him. The words came out strangled. Ross. He's why my nursing license was suspended. He's why the doctor who falsified records walked free. He's why, her voice broke. He destroyed my career in Atlanta to protect his friend. And now he's here. Kong Mi-ho's hands found hers, warm and solid and grounding. Then we destroy him together. Amara looked up at him, this man she'd met 12 hours ago, who was offering her vengeance and protection and purpose wrapped in a devil's bargain. She thought about Zara, about the life she'd built, about 3 years of carefully maintained invisibility. She thought about Theodore Ross's smiling face, about injustice dressed in badges and authority. She thought about Kong Mi-ho's eyes on her in that VIP suite, the moment he'd chosen to trust her when trust meant the difference between life and death. One condition she signed. Name it. I'm not a killer. I won't torture people. I won't help cover up murders. I'm a healer. That doesn't change just because I'm working for you. He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded once. Agreed. You heal. I protect. We stay in our lanes. And if those lanes cross? His smile was sharp and beautiful and slightly dangerous. Then we figure it out together. Amara took a breath that felt like stepping off a cliff, then extended her hand. Kong Mi-ho's handshake was firm, warm, and felt like sealing a contract written in languages neither of them fully understood yet. Park Sun, he smiled. Actually smiled, the first genuine expression Amara had seen from her. Welcome to the organization, Dr. Wells. Let's get you properly set up. I'm not a doctor, Amara protested. Just a nurse. You are now. Park Sun, he pulled up another document on her tablet. Mr. Kang's resources include relationships with several medical schools. Northwestern is prepared to fast-track you through their physician assistant program with full scholarship. You'll be a certified PA in 18 months. Fully qualified to prescribe medications and perform advanced procedures. The scope of it was dizzying. Not just restoration of what she'd lost, but elevation beyond what she'd dreamed. Why? Amara asked again, the question becoming her refrain. Why invest this much in me? Kong Miho's hands moved with careful deliberation. Because yesterday I was surrounded by people I'd trusted for years. And when I was dying, none of them could save me. His expression was intense. You did. A stranger who owed me nothing. That kind of loyalty, that kind of competence, is rare. I don't let rare things slip away. Kim Jae-sung stepped forward, his earlier suspicion tempered with what might have been grudging respect. You'll need combat training. Basic firearms proficiency, defensive tactics, threat assessment. Working this close to Mr. Kong means you're a target. You need to be able to protect yourself. I'm a nurse, not a soldier. You're both now. His tone left no room for argument. Training starts tomorrow. 6 a.m. Amara stopped. What did she have? A cocktail server job she'd never returned to? An apartment she couldn't safely go back to? A life that had ended the moment she'd signed those warning words to a dying man? You have a new life now, Park-sun, he said quietly, reading her thoughts. It will be dangerous, complicated, and nothing like what you planned. But it will be real. And you'll have resources to help people in ways you never could as a conventional nurse. What do you mean? Mr. Kang's organization runs several legitimate fronts, including a community health clinic in Pilsen that serves uninsured immigrants. Staffing is minimal, resources are limited. You could change that. She paused. If you're interested in healing people who actually need it rather than serving champagne to people who poison each other. The hook was expertly baited and Amara knew it. But that didn't make it less appealing. She looked at Kong Miho, who watched her with that intense, focused attention that made her feel simultaneously seen and evaluated. When do I start? She signed. His smile transformed his face. Not the polite mask he showed the world, but something genuine and warm and slightly boyish. You already have. The training room smelled like sweat and old leather, testosterone and determination. Amara arrived at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes early because showing up late to your first combat lesson with a former ROK Special Forces operator seemed like a good way to get your ass handed to you. Kim Jae-sung was already there, wearing tactical pants and a compression shirt that showcased exactly how seriously he took physical conditioning. He looked her over once, evaluating, not leering, and nodded. Good. You dressed appropriately. He gestured to her athletic wear, leggings, sports bra, tank top, all borrowed from the seemingly endless wardrobe someone had stocked in her suite. Most people show up in baggy clothes thinking it'll hide their movements. It just gets them tangled. I'm a nurse, Amara said, moving into the training space. I know anatomy. I know which joints bend which ways and where the body's vulnerable. I'm not starting from zero. No, he agreed. But you're starting from healer, which means your instincts are wrong. We're going to rewire them. He moved with liquid efficiency, demonstrating stance, weight distribution, the mechanics of generating power from legs rather than arms. Amara followed, mimicking his positions while her muscles protested the unfamiliar configurations. Your job isn't to win fights, Kim Jae-sung said, circling her like a predator. Your job is to survive long enough for actual security to arrive. That means dirty tactics, vulnerable targets, and absolutely no hesitation. He demonstrated, eyes, throat, groin, knees. The body's weak points catalogued with clinical precision. Now you try. For the next 90 minutes, Amara learned how to hurt people. How to drive a palm strike into someone's nose with enough force to disorient. How to use her body weight to escape holds. How to target nerve clusters that would drop someone twice her size. It was brutal, exhausting, and somehow clarifying. By the time Kim Jae-sung called the session, she was drenched in sweat and breathing hard, but something had shifted. She felt less like a victim waiting to happen and more like a variable in someone else's calculations. You learn fast, he said, handing her a towel. Good body awareness, decent instincts. Another few weeks and you'll be competent. Competent. High praise. His almost smile was sharp. I don't do false praise. You work hard, you improve, maybe someday you'll be good. He paused. Mr. Kong asked me to tell you he wants to see you after you shower. Breakfast in his private quarters. Amara's stomach did something complicated. His quarters. Top floor. Penthouse level. Take the private elevator from your suite. It connects directly. Kim Jae-sung's expression was carefully neutral. He doesn't bring people there often. Consider it significant. The penthouse was nothing like Amara expected. She'd anticipated more of the same. Minimalist elegance, expensive surfaces, the calculated aesthetics of wealth. Instead she stepped into warmth. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 2 walls, packed with volumes in Korean, English, and what looked like Japanese. Not decorative, actually read with bent spines and marked pages. A massive kitchen occupied one corner, All professional-grade appliances and well-used cookware. Windows overlooked the city, but they were softened with actual curtains, fabric that moved in the air conditioning's gentle current. And in the center of it all, Kong Miho stood at the stove, wearing dark jeans and a soft gray Henley cooking. He looked up when she entered and his smile was unguarded. Almost shy. "Good morning. I hope you're hungry." Amara's brain stuttered. The contrast between this man, barefoot cooking breakfast looking almost normal, and the one who'd ordered interrogations yesterday was dizzying. Starving, she signed honestly. "What are you making?" "Hamel Pigeon. Seafood pancake." His hands moved with easy familiarity, switching between signing and cooking without missing a beat. "My mother's recipe. I make it when I need to think." "You cook?" "I'm Korean. Of course I cook." His smile widened. "Sit. Coffee is ready." The coffee was perfect. Strong, smooth, exactly the kind of fuel her exhausted body needed. Amara cradled the mug and watched Kong Miho work with the practiced efficiency of someone who spent real time in kitchens. When he plated the pigeon and brought it to the small table near the windows, it looked restaurant quality. Golden, crispy edges, tender inside, studded with shrimp and scallions. "Try it." She did. It was extraordinary. "This is incredible," she signed after swallowing. "Where did you learn?" "My mother. Before the meningitis, before everything changed." His expression turned distant. "She used to say that cooking was love made tangible. You take ingredients that alone are nothing special, but together with time and care they become something beautiful." "Wise woman." He was. Past tense, carrying weight. "She died when I was 15. Car accident, though nobody believed it was accidental." Amara's hands stilled on her coffee mug. "You think someone killed her?" "My father had many enemies. He was leverage." He signed with controlled precision, emotions carefully locked down. "After she died, he became harder. Meaner. Decided that love was weakness, that caring about people made you vulnerable." "Do you believe that?" He was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city. Then his hands moved again. "I used to. I spent years proving I could be colder than him, more ruthless. That my deafness wasn't weakness but advantage." His eyes met hers. "But then yesterday happened. And you saved my life not because you had to, but because you couldn't not. Because caring is your default, not your weakness." The intimacy of the confession made Amara's chest tight. "I'm not special. Any nurse would have." His hand cut through the air, emphatic. "Any nurse would have called for help and waited. You identified the poison in seconds, communicated in a language nobody expected, performed rescue breathing while people tried to pull you away. You fought to save someone you didn't know because that's who you are." He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. "That's why you're here. Not just because you're competent, though you are. Because you're genuine. In a world where everyone wears masks, you're exactly what you appear to be." "You don't really know me," Amara signed, but her hands trembled slightly. "I could be performing too." "Are you?" She met his gaze, those dark eyes that seemed to see through every defense she'd ever built. "No," she admitted. "I'm terrified, confused, and way out of my depth. But I'm here. And I'm real." "Good." His hand covered hers on the table, warm and solid. "I need real. I'm surrounded by calculations, strategies, people who want things from me. You're the first person in years who looked at me and saw someone worth saving rather than someone worth using." The weight of his loneliness hit her like physical force. This man who commanded hundreds, who shaped Chicago's underworld with quiet authority, who could order deaths with a gesture. He was isolated in ways most people couldn't comprehend. Deaf in a hearing world. Leader in a culture that valued traditional hierarchy. Powerful enough that everyone approached him with agendas hidden behind smiles. "I see you," she signed. "Not just the boss or the criminal or the deaf man. I see someone who makes his mother's recipes to remember her. Who reads obsessively. Who trusted a stranger because the alternative was death." Something shifted in his expression, vulnerability breaking through control. "What happened in Atlanta?" He signed. "The real story. Not the official version." Amara's throat tightened, but she demanded honesty from him. Fair was fair. "I was working peds oncology. Night shift. There was a patient, 8-year-old girl, leukemia." Her hands moved slowly, each sign carrying old pain. Her attending physician was falsifying response data to make an experimental drug look more effective than it was. Pharmaceutical company paying him under the table. The drug wasn't working? Worse. It was accelerating tumor growth in some patients. Amara's hands shook. "I found the real lab results he'd hidden. Saw 3 kids who'd gotten worse after starting the trial. I reported it to the medical board. And they buried it. The doctor had connections. One of them was Theodore Ross. FBI agent who'd been investigating hospital fraud but decided to protect his friend instead. She forced herself to continue. They couldn't fire me directly, so they manufactured a medication error. Said I'd given a patient the wrong dosage, caused harm. It never happened, but they had falsified records, witness statements, everything. They destroyed your career to protect a murderer. The little girl died 6 weeks later. The tears finally came, hot and bitter. Her name was Sophia. She loved butterflies and wanted to be a marine biologist. And she died because I wasn't fast enough, smart enough, connected enough to stop them. Kong Miho moved around the table, kneeling beside her chair so they were eye level. His hands cupped her face with devastating gentleness, thumbs wiping away tears. It's not your fault. I should have done more. You did everything you could. You told the truth. That's all any of us can do. His expression was fierce. But now we can do more. Together. Ross destroyed your career. He's trying to kill me. We end him. Legally. However necessary. His hands moved with cold certainty. But if you want legal, if you want to expose him properly, I have resources. Lawyers, investigators, journalists who owe me favors. We can build a case that destroys him publicly. Why would you do that? It's safer to just kill him. Because you're a healer. His slight smile was tender. And I need you to stay that way. If I turn you into something you're not, I've destroyed the very thing I'm trying to protect. Amara's breath caught. The understanding in his eyes, the careful way he was navigating her boundaries. It was more intimate than anything physical could have been. Thank you, she signed. Don't thank me yet. His expression turned serious. Park-sun, he will brief you after breakfast. We've identified 2 more conspirators from the interrogations. Both senior members. Both people I've trusted for years. I'm sorry. Don't be. Betrayal is just information. His hands moved with practiced detachment. It tells me who's loyal, who's opportunistic, who can be bought. Now I know. Now I can rebuild with people who won't poison me. People like me? People exactly like you. He stood, pulled her to her feet, and for a moment they stood close enough that she could feel his warmth, smell the faint scent of his cologne mixed with cooking spices. One more thing, he signed. Tonight there's a meeting. Full organization, all remaining senior members. I'm announcing changes, new security protocols, consequences for the conspirators. You want me there? I need you there. His expression was intent. As my personal physician. As my medical advisor. As someone who can hear what I can't and sign what others won't say directly. Your ears. And more than that. His hand rose, fingertips brushing her jaw in a gesture that made her pulse skip. My trust. In that room, surrounded by people who might want me dead, you're the only person I'll know isn't lying. The responsibility of it was staggering. But looking at his face, at the vulnerability he was showing her in this private space before he put on his armor for the world, Amara felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just protection or professional obligation anymore. This was something else. Something dangerous and complicated and undeniably real. I'll be there, she signed. Wherever you need me. His smile was like sunrise. Slow, warm, transforming everything it touched. Then we're going to be magnificent. The afternoon was a blur of preparation. Park Sun-hee appeared with an entirely new wardrobe. Professional clothes that whispered authority without screaming wealth. Tailored slacks, silk blouses, a leather portfolio that probably cost more than Amara's nursing school tuition. Tonight you're not a nurse in scrubs, Park Sun-hee explained, laying out options on the guest suite's bed. You're Dr. Wells, Mr. Kang's personal medical advisor. You need to look the part. I'm not actually a doctor yet. They don't know that. And by the time anyone checks, you will be. Park Sun-hee's smile was sharp. Perception is reality in our world, Miss Wells. You'll learn. She selected a charcoal pantsuit that fit like it had been made for Amara's body, because it probably had been, sometime in the last 24 hours while she slept. There will be approximately 40 people in that meeting, Park Sun-hee continued, now coaching rather than just dressing. Senior advisors, territory managers, financial controllers. Most of them have been with the organization for decades. They'll resent you. Because I'm new? Because you're a black woman with immediate access to Mr. Kong in a culture that values traditional hierarchy and ethnic homogeneity. Park Sun-hee's bluntness was almost refreshing. They'll test you. Question your credentials, your loyalty, your right to be there. You cannot show weakness. I don't know how to play these games. You don't have to. You just have to be exactly what you are, competent, confident, and completely necessary to Mr. Kang's survival. Park Sun-hee pulled out a slim leather case. He's going to make a statement tonight. About you. It will be significant. What kind of statement? That's his to make, not mine to preview. But something in Park Sun-hee's expression suggested she knew exactly what was coming and approved. Just be ready. At 7 p.m., Amara stood outside the conference room on the building's 8th floor, listening to the murmur of voices beyond the heavy doors. Korean mixed with English, the particular cadence of powerful people gathering. Kim Jae-sung appeared beside her, also dressed formally, his scars somehow more pronounced in the harsh hallway lighting. Nervous? He asked. Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He adjusted his jacket, revealing the weapon holstered beneath. Stay close to Mr. Kong. If anything feels wrong, sign it to him immediately. He'll handle the rest. The doors opened. The conference room was impressive. Massive table, leather chairs, screens displaying financial data and territory maps. And around the table 40 faces turned to assess the newcomer. Amara felt the weight of their evaluation. Calculating, suspicious, some openly hostile. She recognized several from the security briefings. Park Jin-woo, Lee Sang-hoon, the senior advisors who'd been in the VIP suite. Others were unknown, but their body language spoke volumes. She didn't belong here. Kang Mi-ho sat at the head of the table, dressed in a black suit that probably cost what most people made in a year. He looked every inch the leader, cold, controlled, absolutely in command. His eyes found Amara across the room and something in his expression warmed fractionally. He gestured to the empty chair beside him. Not across the table where advisors sat. Not in the secondary row where assistants hovered. Beside him, at his right hand, the position of highest trust. The room's temperature dropped 10 degrees. Amara walked to that chair with her head high, her stride confident, channeling every ounce of the authority she'd earned through years of emergency medicine. She sat, folded her hands on the table and met the hostile stares without flinching. Kang Mi-ho's hand moved in a subtle gesture, and Park Sun-hee, positioned near the screens, began translating his signs into spoken Korean and English. Thank you all for gathering on short notice. His words came through Park Sun-hee's voice, professional and cool. We have significant matters to address regarding recent events. He pulled up photos on the main screen. Choi Sung-min and 2 other men Amara didn't recognize. 3 days ago, these men conspired to assassinate me using tetrodotoxin poisoning. The conspiracy was extensive, well-funded, and coordinated with external parties, specifically the FBI's Organized Crime Task Force under Special Agent Theodore Ross. Murmurs rippled through the room. Shock, anger, calculation. The conspirators believed my deafness made me vulnerable. That I couldn't hear them plotting, couldn't perceive threats they discussed openly. His expression was cold. They were wrong. But they were also partially successful. I was poisoned. I was dying. He paused, letting the weight settle. I survived because of this woman. His hand gestured to Amara. Dr. Amara Wells. She identified the poison in seconds, communicated the diagnosis when no one else could, and performed life-saving measures that kept me alive until proper medical care arrived. Amara felt the room's focus intensify, suspicion mixing with grudging interest. Dr. Wells is a certified nurse with specialization in toxicology and emergency medicine. She's fluent in American Sign Language. She has no prior connections to any organization, legitimate or otherwise. She saved my life because that's who she is, a healer who acts on instinct and training. One of the older men, Park Jin-woo, spoke up in Korean. Park Sun-hee translated. With respect, sir, how do we know she wasn't part of the conspiracy? Placed there specifically to gain your trust. Kang Mi-ho's expression didn't change, but his hands moved with sharp precision. Because she had nothing to gain from saving me and everything to lose. The conspirators saw her intervene. They know she's a witness. They've already tried to eliminate her twice. Once at her apartment, once in transit to this facility. She's in danger because she chose to act. He turned to face Amara, and something in his gaze made her breath catch. Dr. Wells could have walked away. Could have taken the protection I offered and disappeared into a safe life far from Chicago. She chose to stay. To help me identify the remaining conspirators. To become part of this organization despite knowing exactly how dangerous that choice is. His hand found hers on the table. A gesture visible to everyone, intimate and claiming. Effective immediately, Dr. Wells is my personal physician and medical advisor. She has full access to all facilities, clearance to attend any meeting, and authority to override any decision that affects my health or safety. His signs were emphatic, leaving no room for argument. She answers only to me. Any disrespect toward her is disrespect toward me. Any threat against her is a threat against me. The room was deathly quiet. Is that understood? 40 heads nodded, some reluctant, some calculating, a few, like Kim Jae-sung and Park Sun-hee, with something resembling approval. Kang Miho's hand tightened on Amara's, then released as he turned back to address the room. Now, let's discuss the consequences for betrayal and the new protocols that will ensure this never happens again. For the next 2 hours, Amara sat beside him while he systematically dismantled and rebuilt his organization's security structure. She watched him negotiate, compromise, command, all through Park Sun-hee's translations and his own precise sign language. But more than that, she listened. Heard the things people said when they thought the deaf man couldn't perceive their tone, their sarcasm, their veiled threats. And each time something significant happened, a voice rising in anger, a muttered aside, a shift in the room's energy, she signed it to Kang Miho with clinical precision. Lee Sang-hoon just said in Korean, "This is insulting. A woman. A black woman." At his right hand. Kang Miho's expression didn't flicker, but his next directive pointedly excluded Lee Sang-hoon from a lucrative territory assignment. Marcus Chin whispered to David Kim, "How long until she's a liability too?" Both men found themselves assigned to positions under direct supervision, their previous autonomy quietly stripped away. By the time the meeting ended, the power structure had been completely reorganized. Loyalists elevated. Conspirators removed. And Amara Wells firmly established as untouchable. As people filed out, several paused to acknowledge her, some with genuine respect, others with calculated politeness. Park Sun-hee nodded approval. Kim Jae-sung's slight smile suggested she'd passed some unspoken test. Finally, the room emptied except for Amara and Kang Miho. He turned to her, exhaustion visible now that his armor had dropped. "Thank you," he signed. "That was brutal. Necessary. Terrifying." She finished for him. "You just made me a target to everyone who resents your authority." Yes. He didn't apologize, didn't soften it. "But I also made you untouchable. Anyone who moves against you moves against me. That's the strongest protection I can offer. By claiming me publicly. By telling the truth." His hands moved with careful intensity. "You are essential to me. Medically, yes. But more than that. You're the only person in that room I trusted completely. The only one who signed what others were saying without filtering or manipulating. Your ears. My truth." He stood, moved closer until they were inches apart. "In a world where everyone lies, you're aggressively honest. That's rare. Precious. Worth protecting." His hand rose to cup her face and Amara's breath stopped. "I know this is happening fast," he signed with his free hand. "I know you're still processing everything. But I need you to understand something. What I said in that meeting wasn't performance. It wasn't strategy." His thumb traced her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "It was truth. You're mine to protect now. Mine to trust. He stopped, searching for the right sign. "Mine to care for?" Amara supplied, her hands trembling slightly. "Yes." His forehead touched hers. "If you'll let me." Every rational part of Amara's brain screamed danger. This man was a criminal. She'd known him for 36 hours. This was moving too fast, burning too hot, crossing too many lines. But looking at his face, at the vulnerability he showed only to her, feeling the warmth of his touch and the absolute certainty in his signs. "I'm yours," she signed back. "However this works. Whatever it means. I'm yours." His kiss was inevitable. Soft at first, testing, giving her room to retreat. Then deeper when she responded, his hands sliding into her hair, her body pressed against his as 3 days of tension and danger and undeniable attraction finally combusted. He tasted like the expensive coffee from his penthouse, like control barely maintained, like promises neither of them knew how to keep yet. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his smile was boyish and utterly unguarded. "You're going to destroy me," he signed. "Good," she replied. "You need destroying. Too much control. Too many walls. Says the woman who spent 3 years invisible. Guess we'll destroy each other then." His laugh was silent but genuine, his shoulders shaking with it. The next 3 weeks blurred into a rhythm Amara hadn't known she was capable of. Mornings started with Kim Jae-sung's brutal training sessions, hand-to-hand combat evolving into weapons proficiency, defensive driving, threat assessment. She learned to read rooms the way she'd learned to read patient charts, quickly, accurately identifying the dangers before they became critical. Afternoons belonged to medicine. The community clinic in Pilsen became her domain, a converted warehouse that served Chicago's most vulnerable populations. Undocumented immigrants, uninsured families, people who'd learned that hospitals asked too many questions. Amara hired 2 additional nurses, negotiated a partnership with a nearby pharmacy for discounted medications, and established rotating physician coverage from doctors who owed Kang Miho favors. Within 2 weeks, they were seeing 60 patients daily. Within 3, they'd prevented 2 diabetic crises, diagnosed 3 cancers early enough to matter, and provided prenatal care to women who'd been delivering babies in apartment bathtubs. This was healing on a scale she'd never imagined possible. Evenings were Kong Miho's. They fell into patterns without discussing them. Dinner in his penthouse. Sometimes he cooked, sometimes they ordered in. Always they ate facing each other so he could read her lips and expressions. She told him about her day in medicine. He told her about his in crime. The juxtaposition should have felt jarring, but somehow it didn't. He was rebuilding his organization with surgical precision. The conspiracy had exposed weaknesses in his security structure, blind spots in his information networks. Now he was correcting them, promoting younger members who'd proven loyal, establishing new protocols that accounted for his deafness rather than hiding it. "Show me," Amara said one evening 3 weeks in as they sat on his penthouse balcony watching the city lights. He looked at her questioningly. "Your world. The parts you keep separate from me. I want to see what you actually do. It's not pretty. I'm a nurse. I've seen every fluid the human body produces and several it shouldn't. I can handle not pretty." His smile was slight, measuring. Then he pulled out his phone and showed her. Financial statements first. Legitimate businesses that generated real revenue and provided cover for less legal operations. Shipping companies, real estate holdings, restaurants that actually served food. The empire his father had built and he'd expanded, diversified, made sophisticated enough to withstand federal scrutiny. Then the other ledgers. The ones that tracked protection payments, loan operations, the gambling networks that operated in backrooms across Chicago. Money moving through channels designed to look random but following patterns Amara's nursing brain recognized. Systematic, methodical, calculated to avoid detection. "You run this like a hospital," she observed. "Everything documented, everyone with specific roles, clear hierarchy for decision-making. Organizations are organizations," he signed. "Legal or illegal, they need structure. People need to know who's responsible for what, who has authority to make which decisions. My father ran everything through fear and personal loyalty. It made the organization unstable. So you made it professional. I made it sustainable." His hands moved with careful precision. "I can't hear whispered threats or conspiratorial meetings. So I built systems where everything is documented, tracked, accountable. It's harder to betray me when every transaction leaves a trail. Except someone still managed. Someone always manages." His expression darkened. "We've identified 4 more conspirators. All connected to Theodore Ross. All promised immunity in exchange for helping eliminate me. How did Ross even connect with your people?" Kong Miho pulled up a photo. Man in his 30s, Korean-American, expensive suit, confident smile. "David Kim. One of the younger members I recruited 5 years ago. MBA from Northwestern, legitimate business background. I thought he'd help modernize operations. And instead he was FBI from the start." Kong Miho's jaw tightened. "Deep cover. Spent 5 years building trust, learning our systems, identifying vulnerabilities. Then he recruited Choi Sung-min and the others, convinced them Ross would protect them if they eliminated me. Where is he now?" The silence that followed answered the question. Amara's stomach turned, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. "Did you?" His hands were emphatic. "I wanted to make his death slow and public. But you asked me not to turn you into something you're not. So I gave him to the FBI instead." "You what?" "Documented everything. His real identity, his cover operation, proof that he participated in conspiracy to commit murder." Kong Miho's slight smile was cold. Ross wanted him to disappear quietly. Instead, his cover got blown, his operation exposed, and now the FBI's internal affairs is investigating why an agent went from gathering intelligence to facilitating assassination. Amara paused, searching for words. "That's actually brilliant. You used the system against itself. You said you wanted legal consequences." His hand found hers. "I'm learning to think like you. Healing instead of destroying. Surgical strikes instead of scorched earth." Something in Amara's chest tightened. This man, this criminal who commanded violence with gestures, was trying to change his fundamental approach because she'd asked him to. Not perfectly, not completely, but genuinely trying. "Thank you," she signed. "Don't thank me yet." His expression turned serious. "Ross is wounded, not dead. Wounded predators are more dangerous. He'll come for both of yous. Then we'll be ready." His smile was warm, proud. "We will." They sat in comfortable silence, the city spreading below them like a game board they were learning to navigate together. Then Kong Miho's phone buzzed, the vibration alert he used since he couldn't hear ringtones. His expression shifted as he read the message. Not fear exactly, but something close. "Problem? My sister." He signed the words with visible tension. She's in Chicago. Wants to meet. I didn't know you had a sister. We're not close. His hands moved carefully, each sign weighted. After my mother died, my father sent her to live with relatives in Seoul. Kept me here, kept her away. Said I needed to be hard and she'd make me soft. How long since you've seen her? 12 years. The number hung between them, carrying its own devastation. 12 years of sibling relationship erased because his father had decided love was weakness. Are you going to meet her? I don't know. He stared at his phone like it was a weapon. He says it's urgent. That she has information about the conspiracy. About Ross. Amara's nurse instincts kicked in. The ones that read patient anxiety and knew when someone needed gentle pressure versus space. What are you afraid of? She asked, speaking aloud because sometimes voice carried nuance that signs couldn't. He watched her lips, reading the words, then his hands moved slowly. That she'll see what I've become. The organization I run, the things I've done. That she'll look at me the way our mother would have, with disappointment. Or, Amara countered gently, she'll see someone who survived impossible circumstances and built something from the wreckage. Someone who's trying to be better than he was raised to be. You see the best in people. It's going to get you hurt. Maybe. But it's also why you trust me. He squeezed his hand. Meet with her. Let me come with you. If it's a trap, we'll handle it. If it's genuine, you get your sister back. He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded once. Tomorrow. Neutral location. Heavy security. The restaurant was one of Kang Mi-ho's. Upscale Korean fusion in Lincoln Park, closed to the public for the afternoon. Kim Jae-sung had swept it 3 times, positioned 5 guards in strategic locations, and established evacuation routes in case of emergency. Amara stood beside Kang Mi-ho near the entrance, watching him vibrate with tension he was trying to hide. His hands were still, his face impassive, but she'd learned to read the micro-expressions. The slight tightness around his eyes, the way his jaw set when emotions threatened to break through control. The door opened. The woman who entered was elegant in a way that suggested soul money and international polish. Early 30s, tailored designer coat, hair in a sleek bun that emphasized her bone structure. She looked like Kang Mi-ho, same sharp cheekbones, same intelligent dark eyes, same bearing that commanded space. She stopped when she saw him, and something in her carefully composed expression cracked. Appa, she said, the Korean term for older brother, familiar and achingly intimate. Kang Mi-ho's hands signed before he could stop himself. Soyeon. Then they were moving toward each other, and Amara watched 12 years of separation collapse into an embrace that made her throat tight. They held each other like drowning people, Soyeon's face buried in her brother's shoulder, his hand cradling the back of her head with devastating gentleness. When they finally separated, both had tears tracking down their faces. Seon signed as she spoke, her eyes all fluid and natural. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I stayed away so long. Father said you didn't want to see me. That you'd moved on. I should have known better. He lied to both of yous. Kang Mi-ho's hands trembled slightly. Kept us apart because he thought it made me stronger. Made me more like him. Did it? No. It just made me lonelier. Soyeon's gaze shifted to Amara, assessing quickly. You must be Dr. Wells. I've heard about you. All good things, I hope. Interesting things. Soyeon's smile was slight, measuring. My brother doesn't trust easily. The fact that you're here in this meeting says more than any introduction could. They moved to a private table Kim Jae-sung had prepared. Tea service appeared. Someone had anticipated Soyeon's preferences, which meant the intelligence network had been working overtime. You said you had information, Kang Mi-ho signed once they were settled. About Ross. Soyeon's expression turned grave. I work for the Korean Intelligence Service. Counter-espionage, specifically focused on Korean-American criminal organizations and their relationships with foreign powers. Amara's blood went cold. You're a spy. I'm an intelligence officer. Soyeon's correction was precise. And I've been monitoring Theodore Ross for 2 years. He's not just FBI. He's running an off-books operation, using his position to eliminate threats and competitors while building his own network. Kang Mi-ho's jaw tightened. Explain. Ross has been taking bribes from multiple organizations, Italian, Irish, Mexican cartels, helping them eliminate competition while maintaining his FBI cover. The Korean community was his latest target. Seon pulled out a tablet, displayed documents. He approached several of your father's old advisors 3 years ago, offered them immunity and territory in exchange for information that would destroy your organization. And when information wasn't enough? He escalated to assassination. Used David Kim as his inside man, convinced Choi Sung-min and the others that removing you would benefit everyone. Her expression was grim. But here's what you don't know. Ross has a partner. Someone with resources, political connections and motivation to see you eliminated. She pulled up a photo. Amara's vision narrowed to a pinpoint. She knew that face. Had seen it in Atlanta in meetings where her whistleblower report was discussed and buried. Dr. Harrison Webb. Hospital administrator. Theodore Ross's fishing buddy. The man who destroyed her career to protect a pediatric oncologist killing children for pharmaceutical money. No, Amara whispered. No, he can't be. He's in Chicago, Soyeon said quietly. Has been for 6 months. Running a new pharmaceutical trial at Northwestern. Another experimental cancer drug with falsified efficacy data. And he's partnered with Ross to eliminate anyone who might expose them. Amara. Kang Mi-ho's hand found hers, concerned. You know this man? He's the reason I'm here. Her voice came out strangled. The reason I lost my license. The reason Sophia died. She turned to Kang Mi-ho, and he must have read the devastation in her face because his expression shifted to something cold and deadly. There's more, Soyeon continued. Dr. Webb's current trial is being conducted through a network of community clinics. Oh my God. Amara's hands went to her mouth. Pilsen. The clinic. He's using my clinic. Explain. The partnership I negotiated with Northwestern for physician coverage. The medical director who approved it was Webb. He's been routing patients into his experimental trial through our clinic, using vulnerable populations who won't question treatment protocols. Nausea rolled through her. I've been helping him kill people without even knowing it. Kang Mi-ho stood abruptly, signing with sharp, controlled fury. How many patients? Amara pulled out her phone with shaking hands, accessing the clinic's database. 12. 12 patients in the last 3 weeks who were referred to Northwestern for advanced treatment protocols. I thought it was legitimate. I thought. She couldn't finish. The weight of it crushed her chest. Soyeon's expression was sympathetic but firm. This is why I came. Not just to warn you about Ross but to stop Webb before more people die. I have evidence. Communications between Webb and Ross, financial records showing bribery, falsified trial data. But I need your help. What kind of help? Kang Mi-ho's hands moved with lethal precision. The evidence I have is sufficient for Korean intelligence purposes, but not for U.S. prosecution. It's classified, obtained through methods that wouldn't be admissible in court. She looked between them. But if someone with medical credentials, someone like Dr. Wells, were to officially audit Webb's trial data and patient outcomes, if she were to file a formal complaint with the medical board and FDA, then the evidence becomes legitimate. Amara's nurse brain kicked into gear despite the horror. An official investigation triggered by proper channels. Exactly. And with your history of whistleblowing, with the documentation of how you were retaliated against in Atlanta, the media attention would be significant. Too significant for Ross and Webb to bury. They'll come for her, Kang Mi-ho signed, his hand finding Amara's. The moment she files, they'll try to eliminate her. Which is why she'll have protection. Soyeon's smile was cold. Not just yours. My. The Korean intelligence service has been looking for an angle to expose Ross's corruption without creating an international incident. This gives us that angle. Amara's mind raced through scenarios, calculating risks and outcomes the way she'd learned to triage patients. How long do we have? Webb's trial is scheduled to present preliminary results in 2 weeks. If the data looks good, the FDA will fast-track approval. The drug will go to market and hundreds, maybe thousands, of cancer patients will receive treatment that accelerates tumor growth. Soyeon's voice was flat. We stop him now or we don't stop him at all. Kang Mi-ho turned to Amara, his expression intense. This is your decision. Not mine. If you do this, you're putting yourself in the crosshairs again. I can protect you but I can't guarantee your safety. Amara thought about Sophia. 8 years old, wanting to be a marine biologist, dying because Amara hadn't been fast enough or strong enough to save her. She thought about the 12 patients from her clinic who were currently in Webb's trial, trusting that the medical system would protect them. She thought about every person who'd ever been destroyed by powerful men who hid behind authority while killing for profit. I'll do it, she said aloud, her voice steady. I'll audit the data. File the reports. Testify if necessary. Whatever it takes to stop him. Amara. No. She cut him off gently but firmly. You asked me once what happened in Atlanta. This is what happened. I tried to do the right thing alone, without resources, without protection. And I failed. But now I have you. I have Soyeon. I have an actual chance to make this matter. She stood, moved to face him directly. You've been changing your approach because I asked you to. Learning to use legal channels instead of violence. Well, this is me learning from you. Using your resources, your protection, your network to fight battles I couldn't win alone. His hands rose to cup her face, thumbs tracing her cheekbones with devastating tenderness. You're going to give me a heart attack. Good thing I'm medically trained. His smile was reluctant, worried but genuine. We do this together. You audit the data. I provide security and logistical support. Soyeon coordinates with Korean intelligence. And Ross? Amara asked. Kang Miho's expression went cold. Ross is mine. He's been coming for me for 3 years. Time to return the favor. Seon stood collecting her tablet. I'll forward everything I have, communications, financial records, trial protocols. You'll need to move fast. Webb has informants throughout Northwestern's administration. The moment you start asking questions, he'll know. Then we don't ask questions. Amara's mind was already working through the logistics. We go directly to the FDA and medical board with a formal audit request. Federal law requires they investigate any credible allegation of trial misconduct. Webb can't stop that without exposing himself. He can make you disappear, Soyeon warned. Ross has done it before. Not this time. Kang Miho's hands moved with absolute certainty. Not her. Not while I'm breathing. The fierce protectiveness in his signs made Amara's chest tight. This man who commanded violence with gestures, who'd been raised to see love as weakness, he was choosing to care about her anyway, publicly and without apology. One more thing, Soyeon said, her expression softening as she looked at her brother. After this is over, after Ross and Webb are handled, I'm staying in Chicago. I've requested a permanent posting here. Kang Miho's hands stilled. Why? Because I've missed you for 12 years. Because father is dead and the rules he made died with him. Because you're my brother and I want to know you again. She smiled, tentative but genuine. If you'll let me. For a moment, Kang Miho's careful control cracked completely. Emotion flooded his face. Grief for lost years, hope for future ones, the desperate relief of someone who'd been isolated finally finding family again. I'd like that, he signed, his hands shaking slightly. Very much. They embraced again and Amara turned away to give them privacy, blinking back tears of her own. Kim Jae-sung materialized beside her, his scarred face thoughtful. You're going to war with a federal agent and a corrupt doctor. You understand the risks. I'm a nurse, Amara said quietly. I've always been at war with people who hurt vulnerable patients. This is just the first time I've had the weapons to fight back. His almost smile was approving. Good answer. The next 72 hours were a controlled hurricane. Soyeon delivered files. Encrypted, comprehensive, devastating. Communications between Ross and Webb spanning 3 years. Financial records showing bribes, kickbacks, payments to witnesses who'd testified against Amara in Atlanta. Trial data showing patient outcomes that should have triggered FDA investigations months ago. Amara cross-referenced everything with her own clinic's records. Of the 12 patients referred to Webb's trial for had already died. Their deaths had been attributed to disease progression, natural cancer evolution. But looking at the actual data, comparing it to the falsified reports Webb had submitted, the truth was clear. The experimental drug was killing them. She documented everything with the precision she'd learned in nursing school. Patient histories, baseline health metrics, treatment protocols, outcome data. Built a case so airtight that even Northwestern's powerful legal team couldn't dismiss it. Kang Miho provided resources she hadn't known existed. Forensic accountants who traced financial connections, private investigators who documented Webb and Ross's meetings, hackers who recovered deleted emails from Northwestern servers. This is illegal, Amara observed on the third night, surrounded by evidence in Kang Miho's penthouse. Extremely, he agreed. But admissible if presented properly. Anonymous tip, concerned whistleblower, journalist investigation. There are ways to launder illegal evidence into legal formats. You've done this before. I've survived 3 FBI investigations. You learn techniques. On the 4th day, Amara filed formal complaints with the FDA, the Illinois Medical Board and Northwestern's Human Research Ethics Committee. Each complaint was identical. Detailed allegations of trial misconduct, falsified data, patient deaths resulting from experimental drugs. Each was accompanied by comprehensive documentation that couldn't be ignored or dismissed. By noon the media had the story. Soyeon had provided it to a Korean-American journalist with a reputation for exposing corruption. The headlines were immediate and brutal. Northwestern cancer trial under investigation. Whistleblower alleges falsified data, patient deaths. Same doctor, different hospital. Pattern of corruption spans Atlanta to Chicago. FBI agent's connection to pharmaceutical scandal raises questions. Webb's response was predictable. Deny everything, attack Amara's credibility, claim this was retaliation from a disgraced nurse with an axe to grind. Ross's response was more concerning. Silence. Complete calculated silence. He's planning something, Kim Jae-sung said, studying surveillance feeds in the war room. Moving pieces we can't see yet. Then we force his hand, Kang Mi-ho signed. Make him act before he's ready. How? Amara asked. Kang Mi-ho pulled up a photo of Ross. Official FBI portrait, confident smile, badge gleaming. We expose his connection to the poisoning. Prove he facilitated assassination while wearing that badge. Make it impossible for the FBI to protect him. We have evidence. We have David Kim. His smile was cold. The deep cover agent who participated in the conspiracy. He's been very cooperative with federal investigators. Gave them everything, including recorded conversations with Ross discussing how to eliminate me. So Ross is already under investigation. Internal affairs only. Quiet, discreet, easy to bury if he has enough connections. Kang Mi-ho's hands moved with lethal precision. We make it public. Force the FBI to choose between prosecuting a corrupt agent or protecting someone who's become a political liability. Soyeon, who'd been coordinating from her own tablet, looked up. I can help with that. Korean intelligence has been documenting Ross's activities for 2 years. If we provide that intelligence to the U.S. State Department through proper diplomatic channels, it becomes an international incident. FBI will have to act. Do it, Amara said, her voice steady. All of it. Expose Ross, destroy Webb, burn it all down before more people die. Kang Mi-ho's hand found hers, squeezed gently. Together, he signed. We burn it together. The knock came at 2:47 a.m. Not on the penthouse door, on the window. Amara woke to the sound, disoriented and afraid. Beside her, Kang Mi-ho was already moving, pulling on clothes, checking his phone for security alerts. Nothing. The system showed no breaches, no threats, no one in the building who shouldn't be there. The knocking came again. Deliberate, rhythmic, patient. Kang Mi-ho moved to the window and Amara saw his expression shift. Surprise, then cold fury. Theodore Ross stood on the balcony. 47 stories up, on a balcony that should have been inaccessible, stood the man who'd destroyed Amara's career. Silver hair perfect despite the Chicago wind, expensive suit without a wrinkle, smile pleasant and absolutely psychopathic. He was holding a phone, text message visible on the screen. May I come in? We should talk. Kang Mi-ho's hands moved in sharp, furious signs to Amara. Stay back. Call Kim Ji. Do not open that door. But Ross held up another phone, this one showing a video feed. Sir. Amara's roommate, bound to a chair in what looked like a warehouse, terror stark on her face. The text came through on Amara's phone. We talk or she dies. Your choice, Dr. Wells. Amara's world narrowed to that single image. Zara, bound and terrified, in a location she didn't recognize. Her best friend. The woman who'd helped her rebuild after Atlanta destroyed her. Taken because Amara had dared to fight back. Kang Mi-ho's hand caught her wrist before she could move toward the window. It's a trap. He wants you isolated, vulnerable. He has Zara. And if you open that door, he'll have you too. His grip tightened, not painful but firm. We handle this tactically. Not emotionally. Ross knocked again, patient as a metronome. The text came through, 60 seconds, Dr. Wells. Then I make a phone call and your friend experiences what tetrodotoxin feels like. I'm told the paralysis is quite terrifying. Conscious but unable to move, unable to scream, unable to breathe. Shall we test her tolerance? Let him in, Amara said aloud, her voice steady despite the panic clawing at her chest. He's not here to kill us. Not yet. He wants something. He scaled 47 stories to get here. Bypassed your security without triggering alarms. He has resources we haven't accounted for. She looked at Kang Mi-ho directly. If he wanted us dead, we'd already be dead. He wants to negotiate. For 3 seconds, Kang Mi-ho's face was a study in controlled fury. Then he pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. Kim Jae-sung's response was immediate. Amara saw it flash across the screen. Security teams mobilizing. Tracing Zara's location. 5 minutes. Kang Mi-ho moved to the window, unlocked it with deliberate care, and stepped back with his hand hovering near the weapon he'd grabbed from the nightstand. Ross entered with the casual confidence of someone visiting a friend's home. He brushed invisible dust from his suit, smiled pleasantly at them both, and settled into one of the leather chairs like he'd been invited for afternoon tea. Thank you for the hospitality. His voice was cultured, warm, the kind that suggested trustworthiness and authority. I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but your security chief is quite competent. Traditional approaches weren't viable. How did you get up here? Kong Miho signed and Amara translated aloud even as her hands shook with suppressed rage. Climbing equipment actually. Old-fashioned but effective. Ross crossed his legs comfortably. I spent 3 years in the FBI's hostage rescue team before transferring to organized crime. Vertical insertion was a specialty. What do you want? Amara's voice came out flat, cold. You have 30 seconds before I stop caring about Zara's safety and Miho kills you where you sit. Ross's expression didn't change but something flickered in his eyes. Respect maybe or recalculation. I want to offer you both a deal. One that benefits everyone and prevents unnecessary bloodshed. We're listening. You've been quite busy this week. Filing complaints, exposing Dr. Webb's trial data, making rather loud noises about corruption and falsified research. Ross pulled out his phone, showed them news headlines. The FDA has opened a formal investigation. Northwestern has suspended Webb pending review. And the State Department received some rather damaging intelligence about my extracurricular activities. He smiled but there was no warmth in it. You've hurt me professionally. Cost me relationships that took years to build. Made it difficult for me to operate in Chicago. He paused. But you haven't destroyed me. Not yet. Because the evidence you have, the recordings, the financial records, the trial data, it's all circumstantial. Suggestive, yes. Embarrassing, certainly. But not quite enough for criminal prosecution. The FDA doesn't need criminal standards, Amara countered. Civil violations are sufficient to destroy Webb's career and shut down his trials. Webb is already destroyed. I'm not here about him. Ross leaned forward slightly. I'm here about what happens next. You've exposed one corrupt doctor. Congratulations. But the system that enabled him, the network of administrators, board members, pharmaceutical executives who profit from falsified trials, that system is still intact. What's your point? My point is that you're fighting a war you can't win. Not long term. You can take down Webb, expose me, eliminate individual bad actors. But the corruption is systemic. There will always be another doctor willing to falsify data, another agent willing to take bribes, another administrator willing to look the other way. He pulled up a document on his phone, slid it across the table toward them. This is a list. 47 names. Doctors, administrators, FDA officials, pharmaceutical executives. Every single one is involved in some form of medical corruption. Falsified trials, suppressed safety data, bribes, kickbacks. Some are killing patients through negligence. Others through active malice. Amara picked up the phone, scrolled through names she recognized from medical conferences, journal articles, administrative meetings. The scope of it was staggering. I've been documenting this network for 5 years, Ross continued. Building cases, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment to act. And then you appeared, Dr. Wells. A genuine whistleblower with credibility, medical expertise, and, he glanced at Kong Miho, significant resources backing her. You want to use her. Kong Miho's signs were sharp with contempt. I want to partner with her. There's a difference. Ross's expression was almost earnest. You want justice for the patients Webb killed. I want to dismantle the entire corrupt system that enabled him. Our goals align. Except you tried to kill Miho, Amara said flatly. You facilitated an assassination attempt using people inside his organization. You're a corrupt agent who kills for profit. Why would we trust anything you say? Something in Ross's face shifted, the pleasant mask slipping to reveal something colder underneath. Because I have your friend. Because I know where your clinic is, where your patients live, which ones are undocumented and vulnerable to IC detention. Because I've been watching you for 3 weeks and I know exactly how to hurt you. He paused. But I don't want to. Hurting you is counterproductive when we could be useful to each other. Release Zara first. Kong Miho's hands moved with lethal precision. Then we discuss terms. No. Zara is my insurance that you'll listen to the full proposal. Ross pulled out another phone, showed them a different video feed. This one showed the warehouse where Zara was held. But the camera angle was wider now, revealing 3 other people bound to chairs. Patients Amara recognized from the clinic. Faces she'd seen just yesterday, people who'd trusted her to provide care. I can have them released unharmed, Ross said quietly. In exchange for your cooperation on a very specific operation. Amara's hands clenched into fists. What operation? Dr. Webb is hosting a fundraiser next week. Private event at his Gold Coast mansion, invitation only. Pharmaceutical executives, FDA officials, hospital administrators. Everyone on that list I showed you will be there. Ross's smile was sharp. It's an opportunity to expose the entire network at once. Live streaming, hidden cameras, documented conversations showing exactly how the corruption operates. And you need us why? Because I can't get inside. Too high profile, too many people who'd recognize me. But Dr. Wells, Ross looked at Amara directly, you're still credible despite Webb's attempts to discredit you. You're the whistleblower, the victim, the nurse who speaks for patients. If you show up at that fundraiser with irrefutable evidence, claim you want to make peace with Webb publicly, he'll let you in. His ego won't allow otherwise. And then what? I record conversations? Gather more evidence. Then you deliver what I've prepared. A comprehensive presentation showing the full scope of the corruption network. Financial records, patient death data, communications between executives. Everything. Ross's expression was intense. Projected on screens in front of everyone who matters. Federal prosecutors, journalists, politicians. Make it impossible to bury. It's suicide. Kong Miho signed, his face dark with anger. Webb will kill her the moment he realizes what's happening. Not if she has protection. Not if your security team is already positioned, ready to extract her the moment the presentation starts. Ross stood, moved to the window. I'm offering you a chance to destroy the entire system in one operation. Full exposure. Complete devastation of the corruption network. And all it costs is one evening of risk. And if we refuse? Amara asked. Ross turned back, and his pleasant expression had disappeared entirely, replaced by cold calculation. Then Zara and those 3 patients die tonight. I disappear, regroup, come back at you from angles you won't anticipate. Dr. Wells's clinic gets raided by IC. Those undocumented patients you've been treating get deported. And Mr. Kong, his gaze shifted to Kong Miho, the RICO case I've been building for 3 years gets filed. Your organization burns. Everyone you've protected ends up in federal prison. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Kong Miho's phone buzzed. Text from Kim Jae-sung. Located warehouse. South Side Industrial District. Teams in position. Can extract hostages in 3 minutes. Kong Miho showed the screen to Amara, his expression asking the question. Do we negotiate or do we take Ross now and handle the consequences? Amara looked at the photos again. Zara's terrified face. The 3 clinic patients who'd come to her for help and were now leverage in a game they didn't understand. She thought about the list Ross had shown them, 47 people actively harming patients for profit. He thought about Sophia. About every child who'd died because doctors valued money over lives. I'll do it, she said. 1 operation. 1 exposure. You release the hostages now and I'll infiltrate Webb's fundraiser. She turned to Kong Miho, signing so Ross couldn't easily follow. Trust me. I have a plan. But I need you to trust me. His jaw worked, fury and fear warring in his expression. Then slowly he nodded. 1 condition he signed to Ross aloud through Amara's translation. My people provide security. My extraction plan. My timeline. You provide intelligence and evidence, but execution is ours. Ross considered this, then inclined his head. Acceptable. I'll forward everything you need. Blueprints, guest list, evidence files. The fundraiser is in 6 days. That gives you time to prepare. He moved toward the window, then paused. 1 more thing. David Kim, your deep cover asset, he's not FBI anymore. I cut him loose 3 days ago. Declared him compromised, burned his identity, made sure no agency will touch him. Ross's smile was cold. He's yours now. Do with him what you will. Then he was gone, rappelling down the side of the building with the same casual competence he'd used to ascend. The moment he disappeared, Kong Miho was on the phone, barking orders in Korean. Kim Jae-sung's team hit the warehouse within 90 seconds. Amara watched the feeds on Kong Miho's phone. Tactical insertion, hostages secured, no casualties. Zara and the 3 patients were safe. But Amara's hands were shaking. You said you had a plan. Kong Miho signed once the immediate crisis had passed. What plan? We use Ross's operation but we make it ours. Her hands moved with forced steadiness. He wants to expose the corruption network. Fine. We do that. But we also expose him. How? He's going to be there. At the fundraiser. Amara's mind was racing, calculating. He can't resist. Too big an opportunity, too many targets. He'll be watching, coordinating, trying to control the outcome. And when he reveals himself, we have evidence ready. Recordings, communications, proof of his involvement in the assassination attempt. Kong Miho's expression shifted to something sharp and approving. We expose everyone at once. Exactly. He pulled her close, his forehead against hers. You're terrifying. You know that? Good. You need someone terrifying. His laugh was silent but genuine, his shoulders shaking with it. Then he pulled back, expression turning serious. 6 days. We have 6 days to plan an operation that either ends this or gets you us all killed. Then we better make it perfect. The next 6 days were organized chaos. Kim Jae-sung took point on tactical planning. Webb's mansion was fortress-like, gated, secured with private security that would make extraction difficult. But it also had weaknesses. Aging infrastructure, surveillance systems that hadn't been updated in years, staff who could be bribed or coerced. Soyeon provided intelligence from Korean sources. Floor plans, security protocols, guest manifests. Webb was expecting 200 people. Pharmaceutical executives, FDA officials, hospital administrators, venture capitalists looking to invest in medical innovation. All of them complicit in varying degrees in the corruption network Ross had documented. Amara prepared the evidence presentation with clinical precision. She took Ross's files, which arrived encrypted, comprehensive, and exactly as promised, and reorganized them into a narrative that even non-medical professionals could follow. Patient histories, treatment protocols, falsified data, deaths that should have triggered investigations but didn't. Financial connections showing exactly how money flowed from pharmaceutical companies to doctors to administrators. And at the center of it all, Dr. Harrison Webb. Not as an isolated bad actor but as a symptom of systemic rot. This will destroy careers, Park Sun-hee observed, reviewing the presentation on the 4th day. Ruin lives. Some of these people have families, reputations built over decades. They built those reputations on dead patients, Amara replied without looking up. Sophia was 8 years old. She wanted to be a marine biologist. She died gasping for air because Webb falsified data to make his drug look effective. Park Sun-hee nodded once, approval in her expression. Good. Mercy is for people who deserve it. On the 5th day Zara appeared at the penthouse. Amara had seen her twice since the hostage situation. Brief, supervised visits to confirm she was physically unharmed. But Zara had been processing trauma, understandably shaken by being used as leverage in a war she barely understood. Now she stood in Kang Mi-ho's living room, looking smaller than Amara remembered, but her eyes were hard with determination. I want to help, she said without preamble. Absolutely not. Amara's response was immediate. You've been through enough. Kim Jae-sung has arranged a safe house in Wisconsin. I don't want a safe house. I want to fight back. Zara moved closer, her voice intense. They took me, Amara. Drugged me, bound me, used me as a weapon against you. I don't get to just walk away from that. She's right, Kang Mi-ho signed, though his expression was reluctant. Trauma doesn't heal through running. Sometimes you need to confront it. She's not trained. Not prepared for. Neither were you 3 weeks ago, Zara interrupted. And you learned. So will I. For a long moment, Amara studied her best friend's face. The determination there, the anger that mirrored her own. What do you want to do? I'm a freelance writer. I have media connections. Zara pulled out her phone, showed them a list of names. Journalists who specialize in exposing corruption. If we're going to blow up Webb's fundraiser, we need press there. Real press, not just pharmaceutical industry publications. Kim Jae-sung, who'd been listening from near the windows, spoke up. That's actually tactically sound. More witnesses means harder to suppress the story. And I know how to get them there, Zara continued. Anonymous tip about a major pharmaceutical scandal breaking at a high-profile event. Plant the rumor in the right places and they'll come. Amara looked at Kang Mi-ho, who signed, your call. She's your friend. Okay, Amara said finally. But you work with Park Sun-hee on media coordination. You don't go near the actual event. You're vulnerable and Ross knows it. Zara's smile was sharp. Deal. The night of the fundraiser arrived with unseasonable warmth. Chicago's weather offering one last gasp of autumn before winter descended. Amara stood in the penthouse bedroom, looking at her reflection in the full-length mirror. The dress Park Sun-hee had selected was perfect. Elegant without being showy, expensive without being ostentatious. Deep emerald that complemented her skin tone. Professional enough for a medical fundraiser, striking enough that Webb's ego would be flattered. She looked like someone who'd come to make peace. Kang Mi-ho appeared behind her, dressed in a tuxedo that transformed him from criminal boss to something that belonged on red carpets. His hands settled on her shoulders, warm and grounding. You don't have to do this, he signed in the mirror's reflection. We can find another way. There is no other way. Not one that ends this completely. I'm terrified of losing you. The admission was raw, unguarded. Amara turned to face him directly. You won't. I'm coming back. We're coming back. She signed with more confidence than she felt. Together, remember? His hands framed her face and he kissed her with desperate intensity. Not gentle, not tender, claiming, memorizing, promising. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. If anything goes wrong, Kim Jae-sung extracts me in 30 seconds. Soyeon has Korean intelligence's backup. Park Sun-hee has coordinated with local police who aren't on Ross's payroll. She signed each point deliberately. We've planned for every contingency. Except the ones we haven't thought of. Then we improvise. She managed a smile. I'm good at that. Kim Jae-sung knocked once, then entered without waiting for permission. Transport is ready. Security teams are positioned. We have eyes on the mansion. Guest arrivals started 20 minutes ago. He handed Amara a small device disguised as an expensive brooch. Audio per video transmitter. Encrypted, untraceable. We'll hear and see everything. Amara pinned it to her dress, feeling its slight weight against her collarbone. Armor disguised as jewelry. One more thing. Kim Jae-sung pulled out a slim knife in an ankle sheath. Last resort only. But better to have it. She strapped it on, the blade cool against her skin beneath the dress's hem. The nurse who'd sworn to heal now armed to kill if necessary. The transformation was complete. Webb's mansion was obscene in its luxury. Gold Coast location, 3 stories of architectural statement, grounds that probably required a full-time groundskeeper staff. Valet parking, red carpet entrance, string quartet playing in the foyer. Amara presented her invitation, forged by Kang Mi-ho's people, absolutely perfect, and was waved through with barely a glance. Inside, the elite of pharmaceutical corruption mingled over champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Amara recognized faces from medical journals, FDA approval panels, hospital administrative boards. People who made decisions that affected millions of patients, all of them compromised by money and mutual protection. And there, holding court near the grand staircase, was Dr. Harrison Webb. He looked exactly as she remembered. Distinguished silver hair, expensive suit, smile that suggested benevolence while hiding sociopathy. He was mid-anecdote, surrounded by admirers who laughed at precisely the right moments. Amara's hands clenched into fists. He forced them to relax. Not yet. Not until everyone who mattered was watching. She accepted champagne from a passing server, didn't drink it, just held it for appearance, and began circulating. Listening to conversations, identifying the key players, waiting for the right moment. In her ear, Kim Jae-sung's voice crackled. All teams in position. Soyeon confirms Ross entered through the service entrance 10 minutes ago. He's monitoring from the security office. Understood, Amara murmured, pretending to admire a painting. Webb's voice cut through the crowd noise. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention. The room quieted, all eyes turning toward the staircase where Webb stood, bathed in carefully positioned lighting. Thank you all for coming tonight. Your support for medical innovation is what makes breakthrough research possible. His smile widened. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that our Phase 2 trials have exceeded all expectations. The FDA has fast-tracked our application for Phase 3 approval. Applause rippled through the crowd. Mar felt sick. In celebration, I'd like to share preliminary data that demonstrates the remarkable efficacy of our compound. That data is falsified. Amara's voice carried across the suddenly silent room. Every head turned. She stepped forward, heart hammering, and met Webb's eyes directly. My name is Dr. Amara Wells. Some of you may remember me from Atlanta, where I exposed similar corruption that Dr. Webb and his associates attempted to bury. She pulled out a small remote, the one controlling the presentation Park Sun-hee had uploaded to Webb's own projection system. Tonight I'm going to show you exactly what you've been celebrating. Webb's pleasant expression cracked. Security, remove this woman immediately. I wouldn't. Amara's thumb hovered over the remote's button. Unless you want every journalist outside, and yes, they're outside, they've been tipped off, to know why you're suppressing evidence of patient deaths. She clicked the button. The screens throughout the mansion flickered to life. Patient files appeared, names redacted for privacy but medical data brutally clear. Treatment protocols. Baseline health metrics. And then the progression. Rapid tumor growth, organ failure, deaths occurring within weeks of starting Webb's experimental drug. 12 patients from my clinic in Pilsen were referred to Dr. Webb's trial in the last month. Amara said, her voice steady despite her pulse racing. 4 are dead. 3 more are in critical condition. The remaining 5 are showing accelerated disease progression. She advanced the presentation. Financial records appeared next. Payments from pharmaceutical companies to Webb, to administrators, to FDA officials in the room. This isn't medical research. It's systematic murder for profit. The room erupted. Some people moved toward the exits. Others pulled out phones recording. FDA officials looked horrified or calculating, depending on their level of complicity. And Webb's face had gone white, then red with fury. You self-righteous bitch, he hissed, moving down the stairs toward her. You destroyed your own career with paranoid accusations in Atlanta, and now you're trying to destroy mine. I didn't destroy my career. You did. Amara stood her ground. You and Theodore Ross. You falsified evidence, bribed officials, used your FBI connection to bury my whistleblower report. She clicked to the next slide. Communications between Webb and Ross, discussing exactly how to eliminate Amara's credibility, how to manufacture evidence of medication errors, how to ensure she'd never practice nursing again. And when I came to Chicago when I started rebuilding, you saw an opportunity. Use my clinic to recruit vulnerable patients for your trials. Use me without my knowledge to provide legitimacy. Webb was close now, close enough that she could see the rage in his eyes, the calculation behind it. You can't prove any of this. These documents could be fabricated. They're not. A new voice cut through the chaos. Theodore Ross emerged from the crowd and Amara's blood ran cold. He was supposed to stay hidden, supposed to wait until after the exposure. But he was walking toward the center of the room with the confidence of someone about to seize control. Dr. Wells is telling the truth, Ross said, his voice carrying authority. I've been investigating Dr. Webb's corruption for 3 years. Building a case, gathering evidence. Tonight, thanks to Dr. Wells's courage, we're finally bringing him to justice. He pulled out his FBI badge, held it high. Harrison Webb, you're under arrest for medical fraud, falsification of federal trial data, and conspiracy to commit murder through willful medical negligence. And what about your corruption? Amara interrupted, her voice cutting through Ross's performance. Should we discuss that too? Ross's expression flickered. I don't know what you're. Amara clicked the remote again. New slides appeared. Communications between Ross and Choi Sung-min, Kang Mi-ho's former advisor, discussing assassination plans. Financial records showing payments from various criminal organizations to offshore accounts Ross controlled. Evidence of every bribe, every deal, every life destroyed by a federal agent who'd weaponized his badge. Theodore Ross facilitated an assassination attempt against Kang Mi-ho 3 weeks ago, Amara said, her voice steady. Used his position as FBI Organized Crime Task Force head to coordinate with internal conspirators. And when that failed, he tried to use me as a weapon against both Mi-ho and Dr. Webb, eliminate his enemies while maintaining his cover. The room had gone deathly silent. Ross's pleasant expression had disappeared entirely, replaced by cold fury. His hand moved toward his jacket. Kim Jae-sung materialized from the crowd, weapon drawn and aimed with professional precision. Don't. More of Kang Mi-ho's security appeared, surrounding Ross, cutting off escape routes. And then Kang Mi-ho himself entered, moving through the crowd with lethal grace. He was still in his tuxedo, but the civilized veneer had dropped completely. This was the man who commanded Chicago's underworld, who'd survived assassination and betrayal, who'd learned to be more dangerous than anyone expected. He stopped beside Amara, his presence radiating controlled violence. Ross laughed, bitter, exhausted. You think exposing me changes anything? You think the system cares? I've been doing this for 15 years. I have connections that go straight to Washington. Evidence against me will disappear. Witnesses will recant. And you, his gaze fixed on Amara, you'll be discredited again just like Atlanta. Except this time it's recorded, Soyeon said, stepping forward from the crowd. Live-streamed, actually. To 47 news outlets, 3 federal agencies and the Korean Intelligence Service. She held up her phone showing the feeds. Thousands of viewers watching in real time. You're not just exposed, Agent Ross. You're documented. Permanently. Every word, every threat, every admission of guilt. Recorded and distributed beyond your ability to suppress. Ross's face drained of color. The sound of sirens cut through the air. Not just police, federal agents, real ones, responding to the evidence that had just been broadcast across multiple channels. Ross lunged then, not toward the exits but toward Amara. Desperation and rage propelling him forward, hands reaching for her throat. Kang Mi-ho moved faster. His fist connected with Ross's jaw with surgical precision. The agent went down hard, consciousness flickering as Kang Mi-ho stood over him with cold satisfaction. That was for trying to kill me, he signed, knowing Ross couldn't understand. And for threatening her. Federal agents poured through the doors. Actual FBI internal affairs, clean agents who'd been waiting for exactly this kind of evidence. They secured Ross, cuffed Webb, began processing the scene. Amara stood in the center of controlled chaos, heart hammering, adrenaline crashing, watching years of corruption finally face consequences. Kang Mi-ho's hand found hers, warm and solid and grounding. You did it, he signed. It's over. Not yet. She squeezed his hand. One more thing. She turned to face the remaining crowd. The pharmaceutical executives, the administrators, the FDA officials who'd enabled this system. All of you saw what just happened. Saw the evidence. Saw 2 men arrested for corruption that killed patients. Her voice carried across the room. Some of you are complicit. Some just look the other way. But all of you have a choice now. She pulled up the final slide. The list Ross had shown her, 47 names involved in medical corruption. Cooperate with federal investigators. Provide evidence. Help dismantle the system that made this possible. He paused, letting the weight settle. Or join Ross and Webb in federal prison. Your choice. Make it wisely. Then she turned away, leaving them with their calculations and fear. Kang Mi-ho guided her through the chaos, out through a side entrance where Kim Jae-sung had vehicles waiting. They drove away as more law enforcement arrived, as journalists descended, as the story began spreading across news networks. In the SUV's quiet interior, Amara finally let herself shake. Kang Mi-ho pulled her close, his arms solid and warm around her. It's over, she whispered against his chest. Really over. Almost, he signed with one hand, the other still holding her. Still have to make sure charges stick. Ensure Ross and Webb go to trial. Protect the patients who testified. But the hard part is done. He nodded, kissed her forehead. The hard part is done. 3 months later. The courtroom smelled like old wood polish and institutional coffee. Amara sat in the witness gallery, hands folded in her lap, watching Theodore Ross face sentencing. The trial had been swift. Federal prosecutors armed with irrefutable evidence, live-streamed confessions, and a parade of witnesses Ross had destroyed over his 15-year career. The jury had deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Now, Judge Patricia Morrison looked down at Ross from her bench with the expression of someone who'd seen every form of human corruption and was thoroughly unimpressed. Mr. Ross, you wore a badge that symbolized justice and public trust. Instead, you used it as a weapon to facilitate murder, protect corruption, and enrich yourself through the suffering of others. Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. The damage you've caused, to individuals, to institutions, to public faith in law enforcement, is incalculable. Ross stood motionless, his expensive suit replaced by prison orange, his silver hair now streaked with gray that aging had accelerated in 3 months of federal custody. For your crimes, this court sentences you to 35 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Additionally, you are ordered to pay restitution to your victims in an amount to be determined by a separate hearing. The gavel fell with finality. Ross was led away without looking back. No last words, no dramatic gestures. Just a man who'd built power through corruption watching it crumble into decades of concrete and steel. Outside the courthouse, Amara found Kang Mi-ho waiting near the SUV, his posture relaxed but eyes constantly scanning for threats. 3 months hadn't changed that. The vigilance, the controlled awareness of someone who'd survived too many betrayals to ever fully relax. But when he saw her, his expression softened into something genuine. How did it go? 35 years. No parole. His smile was sharp with satisfaction. Good. He'll die in prison. Webb goes to sentencing next week. Amara settled into the SUV beside him. Prosecutors are recommending 40 years. His lawyers are trying to negotiate, but with 4 patient deaths directly attributed to his falsified data, he'll spend the rest of his life locked up. Kang Mi-ho's hand found hers, their fingers tangling together with practiced ease. Justice. Finally. Not just justice, Amara said quietly. Change. Real change. The pharmaceutical scandal had exploded beyond anything she'd anticipated. The FDA had launched comprehensive investigations into 17 different drug trials. Northwestern had fired 3 administrators and completely overhauled their research ethics protocols. Congress was holding hearings on systemic corruption in medical research. And the 47 names on Ross's list, 32 had either resigned, been fired, or were facing their own criminal charges. The remaining 15 had cooperated with investigators, providing evidence that was still unraveling networks of corruption across the country. It wasn't perfect. Some people had escaped consequences through legal maneuvering or political connections. But the system had been shaken, exposed, forced to confront its rot. And your clinic? Kang Mi-ho asked as they drove through Chicago's afternoon traffic. Thriving. Amara's smile was genuine, tired but satisfied. We're seeing 90 patients a day now. Hired 2 more nurses and a physician assistant. Northwestern's new medical director approved a legitimate partnership. Actual oversight, ethical protocols, real informed consent for any research participation. She pulled out her phone, showed him photos. The clinic's waiting room, renovated and expanded. Examination rooms with modern equipment. A small laboratory for basic diagnostics. And most importantly, patients. Families who'd learned they could trust the system again. You're saving lives. We're saving lives, she corrected. Your funding made this possible. Your connections got US equipment and staff. This isn't just me. But you're the heart of it. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with a tenderness that still surprised her. The vision, the compassion, the absolute refusal to accept that vulnerable people don't deserve quality care. Learned that from someone, Amara said softly. Someone who taught me that power is only meaningful if you use it to protect people who can't protect themselves. His smile was boyish, almost shy. I'm still learning that. You're a better teacher than you realize. The SUV pulled up to a familiar building, not Kong Miho's corporate fortress but something else. A converted brownstone in Hyde Park, elegant but understated. Come with me, he signed. There's something I want to show you. Inside, the space was warm, exposed brick hardwood floors, sunlight streaming through tall windows. It felt lived in despite being empty, like it was waiting for the right people to claim it. What is this? Amara asked, moving through rooms that flowed together with architectural grace. Home. Kong Miho's hands moved with careful precision. I bought it 2 months ago. Had it renovated to specifications I thought you'd like. Wanted to surprise you. He led her through the space, pointing out details. A kitchen designed for serious cooking, a library with built-in bookshelves, a master bedroom with morning light. And on the second floor, 2 additional rooms. One set up as a medical office, the other as a study. I know you've been living in the penthouse because it's secure, convenient, he signed. But that's my space. My fortress. My world. He took her hands, his expression vulnerable in a way she rarely saw. This is our space. If you want it. Somewhere that isn't about crime or protection or survival. Just life. Real life. Amara's throat tightened. 3 months ago she'd saved a dying man in a VIP suite. Been dragged into a world of violence and corruption that should have destroyed her. Instead she'd found purpose, power, and this man who was offering her something more precious than protection. Belonging. Partnership. Home. I want it, she signed, tears blurring her vision. I want this. I want US. His kiss was tender, celebratory, full of promises they were finally ready to keep. When they broke apart he was smiling, unguarded, genuinely happy in a way that transformed his entire face. There's one more room I need to show you. He led her to the basement where she found something unexpected. A fully equipped medical suite. Examination table, monitoring equipment, locked medication cabinet, even a small surgical area. For emergencies, he signed. My people still get hurt. Still need care that doesn't involve hospitals and police reports. I thought, if you were willing. You want me to be your organization's doctor. I want you to have choices. His hands moved with careful precision. Work at the clinic, help vulnerable patients, do the healing work you love. But also know that my people, our people, need you too. And they'll compensate you properly for it. He pulled out a document, handed it to her. It was a contract. Medical consultant agreement with a salary that made her eyes widen. This is, she paused, reading the numbers again. This is twice what most trauma surgeons make. You're worth it. And the work is dangerous. Fair compensation. Amara studied the contract, her nurse brain analyzing implications. She'd be formally tied to Kong Miho's organization. Treating criminals, patching up people who'd been shot or stabbed in territorial disputes. Crossing lines that her medical ethics training said were absolute. But she'd also have resources to help patients who needed her. Security to protect the vulnerable people at her clinic. The ability to practice medicine without the crushing weight of institutional corruption. I'll do it, she said. On one condition. Name it. I want to expand the clinic. Open 2 more locations in underserved neighborhoods. Provide comprehensive care. Not just urgent treatment but preventative medicine, mental health services, prenatal care, pediatrics. Real community health. Done. I'll fund it personally. And I want to establish a patient advocacy program. Help people navigate the medical system, challenge insurance denials, file complaints about malpractice. Make sure what happened with Ross and Webb doesn't happen again. His smile widened. Also done. Anything else? Yeah. She moved closer, her hands finding his face. I want you to teach me Korean. I can sign, but I want to speak it too. Want to understand your world, not just exist in it. Something in his expression cracked. Emotion flooding through. You want to learn Korean? I want to know you completely. Language, culture, history. All of it. He kissed her then, desperate and claiming, communicating everything words couldn't express. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. My sister is coming to dinner tonight, he signed. She wants to meet you officially. As family, not as intelligence operative. I'd like that. She's intimidating. Very smart, very direct. Doesn't suffer fools. So basically like you. His laugh was silent but genuine. Worse. She has government training. Dinner was at a Korean restaurant Kong Mi-ho partially owned. Upscale but authentic, the kind of place where everything was made from scratch and recipes had been passed down through generations. Soyeon arrived precisely on time, elegant in a charcoal suit that suggested she'd come from official business. But when she saw her brother, her professional mask dropped into something warmer. They embraced, and Amara watched the sibling dynamic with fascination. Seon teasing Kong Mi-ho about his cooking obsession. Him signing sharp retorts about her workaholic tendencies. The kind of comfortable affection that came from years apart now being reclaimed. Dr. Wells, Soyeon said, turning to Amara with measuring eyes. Or may I call you Amara? Amara's fine. And I'm still not a doctor, just a nurse and PA student. My brother's personal physician, Soyeon corrected. Medical advisor to one of Chicago's most powerful organizations. The woman who exposed a pharmaceutical corruption network that's resulted in 17 arrests and counting. Her smile was sharp. I'd say you've earned the title regardless of credentials. They settled at a private table and food began arriving, banchan grilled galbi, kimchi jjigae that smelled like comfort and history. This is incredible, Amara said after the first bite of perfectly charred meat. My mother's marinade recipe, Kong Mi-ho signed. I taught the chef here. Wanted to preserve it. He's very good at preserving things, Soyeon observed. Memories, traditions, people he cares about. Her gaze turned serious. Thank you, by the way, for saving his life. For being someone he can trust completely in a world where trust gets you killed. I didn't do it for gratitude, Amara said honestly. I did it because he was dying and I'm a nurse. That's just who I am. I know. That's what makes you perfect for him. Soyeon's smile softened. He needs someone who acts on instinct and ethics rather than calculation. Someone who reminds him there's more to life than survival. Are you analyzing my relationship? Kong Mi-ho signed to his sister, expression amused. It's my job to analyze everything, Soyeon signed back. Besides, she's good for you. You smile more. Laugh more. Seem less like you're carrying the weight of the world alone. That's because I'm not alone anymore. The siblings' hands moved too fast for Amara to follow completely, but she caught the emotional weight beneath the conversation. Years of separation, guilt over lost time, hope for whatever came next. I have news, Soyeon said, switching to English so Amara could follow. Korean intelligence is opening a permanent liaison office in Chicago. I'll be running it. You're staying? Kong Mi-ho's hands moved with careful hope. I'm staying. Someone needs to keep you out of international incidents. Her expression turned serious. And someone needs to monitor the power vacuum Ross's arrest created. His network didn't disappear. It fractured. Smaller players are fighting for territory, trying to fill the space he left. Will that affect Mi-ho's organization? Amara asked. Potentially. But that's where coordination helps. Soyeon pulled out a tablet, showed them intelligence assessments. Korean and American interests align here. We want organized crime that's actually organized, predictable, manageable, doesn't cause international incidents. Your brother's organization is exactly that. So you're offering protection, Amara said slowly. Official Korean government backing in exchange for cooperation. More like strategic partnership. Information sharing, coordination on human trafficking prevention, helping us track North Korean operations in the US. Soyeon looked at her brother. You'd maintain autonomy, but have resources and protection that make you untouchable to people like Ross. What's the catch? You clean up your operations. No trafficking, no drugs, nothing that crosses lines even we can't defend. You focus on what you do well. Protection services, financial operations, legitimate business fronts that actually function legitimately. Kong Mi-ho considered this, hands still as he calculated implications. I'll discuss with my advisors. But tentatively, yes. I've been moving this direction anyway. He glanced at Amara. Trying to build something that doesn't require constant violence. Because of her, Soyeon observed. Because I'm tired of only knowing how to destroy things. His hands moved with quiet intensity. I want to build instead. Create something that lasts. Then we'll help you. Soyeon raised her soju glass. To family. To partnership. To building things that matter. They drank and Amara felt the weight of it. This strange coalition she'd become part of. A criminal organization, Korean intelligence, and a nurse who'd stumbled into all of it by saving one man's life. After dinner, Soyeon excused herself, late meeting with her team. Kong Mi-ho drove Amara back to their new brownstone, the one that was slowly becoming home. Inside, he pulled her close, his hands finding her waist. Thank you, he signed. For what? For choosing me. Choosing this life. Even though it's complicated and dangerous and nothing like what you planned. Amara's hands cupped his face, making him look at her directly. I didn't choose this life. I chose you. Her signs were deliberate, weighted with certainty. Everything else, the organization, the danger, the complexity, that's just context. But you're the choice I make every day. His kiss was answer enough. Tender, claiming, full of emotion he'd spent a lifetime learning to suppress. They made love slowly that night in the bedroom of a home that was finally theirs. Not a fortress, not a safe house, not temporary accommodation. Home. Afterward, tangled in sheets with Chicago's lights glittering through the windows, Kang Mi-ho signed in the darkness. I love you. The words, simple, profound, hung between them. Amara had known, of course. Had seen it in the way he looked at her, the care he took with her safety, the home he'd built anticipating her needs. But hearing it signed, deliberate and vulnerable, still stole her breath. I love you too, she signed back. Completely. Permanently. However this works. His smile was brilliant even in the dim light. However this works, he agreed. 6 months later. The clinic's grand reopening was exactly what Amara had envisioned. 3 locations now, Pilsen, Southside and Austin. Each one staffed with bilingual medical professionals, equipped with modern technology, and offering comprehensive care regardless of insurance status or immigration documentation. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew local politicians, community leaders and patients whose lives had been saved by the care they'd received. Amara stood at the podium, looking out at faces that reflected Chicago's beautiful diversity. She'd prepared remarks, but looking at the crowd, she set the notes aside. A year ago, I was serving drinks in a private club, hiding from my past, convinced my career in medicine was over. Her voice carried across the assembled crowd. Then I met someone who was dying. And I did what nurses do, I helped. I saved a life. She paused, finding Kang Mi-ho in the crowd. He stood near the back with Kim Jae-sung and Park Sun-hee, dressed in an expensive suit but looking almost relaxed. That choice, to help when I didn't have to intervene when staying silent was safer. That choice changed everything. It brought me into a world I didn't understand, forced me to confront people and systems I'd run from, and ultimately gave me resources I'd never dreamed of having. These clinics exist because someone powerful decided that protecting vulnerable people mattered more than profit. Because an organization that operates outside the law chose to fund healthcare for communities the legal system has failed. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Surprise, calculation, understanding. I'm not here to defend or condemn how that organization operates. I'm here as a nurse, as a healer, to say that sometimes justice and legality aren't the same thing. Sometimes doing the right thing means working with people society says you shouldn't. And sometimes the most radical act is simply providing care to people who've been told they don't deserve it. She gestured to the clinic behind her. These doors are open to everyone. No questions about immigration status, insurance, or ability to pay. No judgment about how you live or where you come from. Just medicine. Just healing. Just the fundamental belief that every person deserves health and dignity. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, after the politicians had their photo opportunities and the news crews had packed up, Amara found herself alone in the clinic with Kang Mi-ho. He was examining the medical equipment with the careful attention of someone who'd personally approved every purchase. It's perfect, he signed. Everything you wanted. Everything we wanted, she corrected. This is our project. Our vision. He pulled her close, and they stood in the empty examination room that would soon be filled with patients seeking care. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Getting involved with me, with my world? Amara thought about the question honestly. The danger, the moral complexity, the lines she'd crossed. The nights she still woke from nightmares about Ross, about Zara's kidnapping, about all the ways everything could have gone catastrophically wrong. Never, she signed with absolute certainty. You gave me my career back. My purpose. The ability to heal on a scale I never could have alone. I gave you danger. You gave me power. She corrected firmly. Power to change things, to protect people, to build something meaningful. Yes, it's dangerous. But so is letting corrupt systems destroy people because fighting back is hard. His expression was intense, searching. You've changed me. You know that? How? I used to think strength was isolation. That caring about people made you vulnerable. His hands moved with careful precision. But watching you care so fiercely, fight so hard for patients you barely know, that's the strongest thing I've ever seen. You're learning. I'm trying. His smile was soft. You're a good teacher. Amara's phone buzzed. Text from Zara. Dinner at our place tonight? I'm cooking. Well, ordering in. But I'll arrange it prettily on plates. She showed Kang Miho, who laughed silently. Your friend has embraced the chaos, he signed. Zara had indeed. After the trauma of her kidnapping, she'd thrown herself into journalism with renewed intensity. Her exposé on pharmaceutical corruption had won awards. Her ongoing coverage of medical ethics had become must-read content for healthcare professionals. And she'd started dating Kim Jae-sung, something nobody had seen coming but somehow worked perfectly. His controlled intensity balanced her chaotic energy. Her warmth softened his sharp edges. Dinner sounds perfect, Amara signed. But first. She pulled him into an empty office, locked the door, and kissed him with the kind of intensity that 3 months of near-constant work had made rare. He responded with matching hunger, hands sliding into her hair, body pressing hers against the door. We can't, he signed when they broke apart, both breathing hard. Not here. Not appropriate. Since when do you care about appropriate? Since you made me want to be better. But his smile was wicked. But tonight at home in our bed. Very inappropriate things. Promise? Guarantee. They composed themselves, straightened clothes, tried to look professional despite kiss-swollen lips and flushed faces. Outside, Chicago spread before them. Vast, complicated, full of people who needed help and systems that often failed them. But inside this clinic, inside the 2 additional locations across the city, inside the home they'd built together, there was healing. There was hope. There was proof that sometimes the most radical act was simply refusing to accept that the world had to stay broken. Amara took Kang Miho's hand, their fingers tangling together with practiced ease. Ready to go home? He signed. She looked at this man who'd been dying when she met him. Who'd trusted her when trust could have killed him. Who'd given her resources to heal while learning to build instead of destroy. Always, she signed back. You always. They walked out together into the golden afternoon light, leaving the clinic to its purpose, heading toward a home that was sanctuary and partnership wrapped together. Behind them, the clinic doors stood open, waiting for patients, for healing, for the complicated, messy work of caring for people society had abandoned. And above, on the building's facade, a sign gleamed in the sunlight. David Kennedy Memorial Community Health Center, named in honor of Amara Wells' father, whose life was stolen by medical corruption, funded by the Kong Foundation, healing without barriers, care without judgment. Below it, in both English and Korean, everyone deserves health. Everyone deserves dignity. Everyone deserves to be seen. 3 years ago, Amara Wells had lost everything. Her career, her reputation, her faith in systems designed to protect people. 1 year ago, she'd saved a dying man and stumbled into a world of violence and power she hadn't understood. Today she stood beside that man, no longer just his physician but his partner, his equal, his love, and looked at what they'd built together. Not perfect. Never perfect. But real. Meaningful. Making a difference one patient at a time. This is just the beginning, Kang Miho signed as they drove through their city. Good, Amara signed back. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Together? Always together. The SUV merged into traffic, carrying them toward home, toward dinner with friends who'd become family, toward a future neither of them had planned but both were building with deliberate care. Behind them, Chicago glittered in the afternoon sun, beautiful and broken, full of people who needed healing and systems that often failed them. But in 3 clinics across the city, doors stood open. Lights were on. Staff prepared for tomorrow's patients. And somewhere in the city's vast sprawl, lives were being saved. Not because it was profitable but because someone had decided that caring was worth the cost. That healing was always worth the fight. That love, messy, complicated, dangerous love, was the most radical act of all. 6 months after the clinic openings, Dr. Amara Wells completed her physician assistant certification with honors. She continues to run the Kennedy Memorial Clinics while serving as personal physician to Kang Miho's organization. Theodore Ross is serving his sentence at FCI Terre Haute. Dr. Harrison Webb received 42 years for his role in patient deaths and corruption. 17 others from the pharmaceutical corruption network have been convicted, with ongoing investigations expanding to additional cases. The FDA implemented new oversight protocols for clinical trials following the scandal. 3 members of Congress introduced legislation requiring independent verification of pharmaceutical research data. Kang Miho's organization has transitioned to primarily legitimate operations, with continued protection services that operate in gray legal areas but avoid trafficking, drugs, and violence against civilians. His partnership with Korean intelligence remains classified. Seon Kang runs the Korean Intelligence Chicago Liaison Office and has dinner with her brother every Tuesday. Zara Chin and Kim Jae-sung married in a small ceremony 18 months after the events of this story. They argue constantly and are disgustingly happy. Amara and Miho are building something neither of them fully understands yet. Something dangerous and beautiful and entirely their own. And every day 3 clinics across Chicago open their doors to people who need healing. That's victory enough.